and out, riddled with doubt, had nowhere to go. Everything's moving so slow, the time's moving too fast. I hope this feeling don't last. Well, I've been away from myself too long. My body is aching from all my wrongs. And now that I know I'm not that strong, I'll keep slipping onto you. I'll keep slipping until my time is through. I'll keep slipping onto you, yeah, onto you. Well, I've been away from myself too long. My body is aching from all my wrongs. And now that I know I'm not that strong, I'll keep slipping onto you. I'll keep slipping until my time is through. I'll keep slipping onto you, yeah, onto you. I was down and out, so riddled with doubt.
am the devil. I am the Lord Satan from the netherworld, ruler of the damned and eternal king of hell. Even I, the master of deceit, can only stomach so much bullshit from the mainstream media and indie grifters. That's why I tune in to Morning Extra with Uncle Warren, because he eliminates my competition, and also because I know I'm gonna see that motherfucker soon.
Deo, Deo.
Baby's got a burger and a shooter and that shake it won't go down. Baby's got a burger and a shooter and that shake it won't go down. Corrosion, corrosion to her thighs, erosion, erosion of her pride. Baby's got a shooter, baby's got it, baby's got it. Corrosion now, corrosion now. Baby's got it.
All right, corrosion. Joe Rogan. That's what it sounds like he's saying. Corrosion. Joe Rogan. I'm silly. I'm not even high. That's crazy. That's crazy. Good morning, everybody. It is Hump Day. 1 week from Murray Crumma. It's coming next week. It's not even breathing hard right now. Shout out to our buddy Willie Bragg hooking us up with the 10 spot there. He says, all I want for Christmas is a universal system of socialized medicine like other normal countries. Well, we ain't like normal countries. we're a different kind of special. We're Americans. We all special. Like special needs. Miguel in the house. Good to see you, my friend. And Steve Wolfbrand. UFOs all over our skies. I know, right? That's going to be a hell of a cleanup. Somebody's going to need a whole bunch of brawny to clean that up. John Kemper, good to see you, my friend. As well as Desert Mantis. And Anonymous said, hopefully I can get back before you end. Got to go out. All right, well, do your thing, man. It's cool. We'll probably be here. Yeah, and of course, Chuck's Intergalactic UFO Show, Melty, Krispy Kremes to all. Delicious Krispy Kremes. Wish I had one right now. Although, I probably shouldn't. I'm already sweet enough. Damn, every time I start this show, it's like I'm comfortable right before the show. And then once the show hits, it's like, yeah, don't hold your breath, Willie. I know, but we can think positive thoughts, right, Steve? Those are free for right now till the thought police get at us. Amber over on the Facebooks. What's up? Good morning, little kumquats. Look at that little kumquats. You keep that mouth civil, lady. And talking about quats or cum. That's another show. I know you're talking about the little fruity things. Don't listen to me. Yeah, so we got a little bit of a show for you here this morning. First off, as always, if you can, please help out our buddy Chanda over at Beauty and the Boomer, and of course, Trailer Park Pundit. She's a queen, and she is battling lung cancer, so she's been a champ throughout all of this. If you can help her out, the GoFundMe for her is down below. If you want to give, that's great. If you can't, if you could share out the link, that would be great too. We'd all appreciate it. Nobody needs to deal with lung cancer or any kind of cancer. Although I hear the Russians have a vaccine for cancer. Now, I don't know if this is a vaccine that stops it or if it's the American vaccine that just treats the symptoms. Because, they changed the definition of vaccine over here in the good old U.S. of A. All right, so we got shit to get to, so might as well get to it. So you heard about, obviously, Luigi Mangione getting arrested. Well, now they're adding terrorism to the mix. So Luigi Mangione charged with murder as an act of terrorism for killing of insurance CEO. This is from Common Dreams and Eloise Goldsmith. Luigi Mangione, the 26-year-old suspect arrested last week in connection to the killing of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson, was indicted on charges including murder in the first degree in furtherance of terrorism and murder in the second degree as an act of terrorism, the Manhattan District Attorney's Office announced Tuesday. Yeah, Cuba has a cure for some types of lung cancer. They had it for years. I know. Get her down to Cuba. That would be great. Thompson was gunned down outside of a Midtown Manhattan hotel on December 4th, prompting a days-long manhunt to find the shooter. The case also triggered a wave of dark humor and vitriol directed at the for-profit healthcare industry. The Manhattan District Attorney's Office previously filed paperwork charging Mangione, an Ivy League graduate and Maryland native, with murder, but the terror allegation is new, according to the AP. Of course it's new. We got to, yeah, exactly, John. Terrorize the elite. Yeah, you know, if this had been anybody else, this had just been like some regular person that wasn't a CEO of a healthcare company that didn't have the ability to trigger some sort of copycat, then they probably wouldn't say terrorism. I don't know. Maybe that's just me. Maybe I'm just silly pants for thinking that. Oh, thanks. Steve over on doing double duty on Facebook as well. Yeah, so if you didn't know, we're on YouTube, Rockfin, Rumble, and Facebook. So pick your poison if you're into that sort of thing. A day after Mangione was arrested and first charged, independent journalist Ken Klippenstein published what he said was Mangione's manifesto, which read in part, "I do apologize for any strife of traumas, but it had to be done. Frankly, these parasites simply had it coming." In addition, Mangione has been charged with a second count of murder in the second degree, pertaining to the fact that the killing was intentional. How do you get 2 counts of murder for one person? Said District Attorney Alvin Bragg during a press conference on Tuesday. No relation to Willie Bragg, by the way. Or maybe, I don't know, Willie, if you want to clarify that. All told, Mangione is facing an 11-count indictment, which also includes 2 counts of criminal possession of a weapon in the second degree and 4 counts of criminal possession of a weapon in the third degree. He has also been charged with Pennsylvania gun and forgery offenses and is currently being held in a Pennsylvania jail. Bragg called Thompson's killing brazen, targeted, and premeditated shooting and said the terrorism charges were warranted because the slaying was intended to evoke terror. Well, aren't all shootings kind of intended to evoke terror before you ice them? I'm just saying. I don't know. I'm not really, I wouldn't be a calm person if I was being shot at by anybody. I'd probably be terrorized. Bragg noted that the maximum penalty possible for murder is first degree and murder in the second degree as an act of terrorism is life without parole. The maximum penalty for murder is in second degree is 25 years to life. Mangione recently hired Manhattan attorney Karen Friedman Agnifilo to represent him. Agnifilo. He got a Karen to represent him. He ought to be in good shape. So she's gonna be like, I want to speak to your manager, Judge. Yeah, so I mean, it's not shocking, is it, that they actually you know, that they're calling this terrorism. And this is the slippery slope, right? So you could, you know, anything that has anything to do with anybody that the establishment protects, like CEOs, Zionists, that sort of thing. No matter what you do to them, you could probably just like tap them on the shoulder and say, "Hey, do you know the time? Oh, look at the violence! Look at the violence." That's what I said. His charges make it sound like he killed multiple people. I didn't realize you could get multiple murder charges from one dude. You know what? I don't think they normally would do that, but in this case, they're trying to put as many charges on this guy as a cautionary tale. Hey, Mariana. Yeah, you knew they were going to add terrorism charges. What the fuck, so lame. Yeah, I'm not shocked. I'm still confused. He didn't get a memorial like George Floyd and others. Yeah, I mean, of course that was the first. They wouldn't put terrorism charges on this if this guy wasn't the CEO of a health company, I mean, or healthcare corporation. I mean, yeah, they gave him all the. That's what I'm saying. They piled as many on there. They want him to be a cautionary tale, but it's. The hardcore ones aren't really going to take it as a cautionary tale. They're just going to double down. Not saying I'm doing it, just saying, it is what it is. You have critical thinking skills. You can figure that one out. Wait. Yeah. How about I'm terrorized by horrible insurance policies? Perfect. Yeah. Where's their terrorism charges? Speaking of George Floyd, thank you for that. I don't know if you meant to be the king of segue there, John, but you did good. So, ex-cop granted second chance to overturn landmark George Floyd case. There you go. Derek Chauvin was convicted of causing the man's death. Chauvin was convicted of murdering after kneeling on his neck during an arrest in 2020 in the state of Minnesota. There he is right there. Oh, gosh, I didn't do dirty. A judge in the U.S. state of Minnesota has granted former policeman Derek Chauvin's legal team access to George Floyd's heart tissue and fluid samples in a bid to overturn the 2020 case. Chauvin is simultaneously serving a 21-year federal sentence for civil rights violations and a more than 22-year state sentence for the second-degree murder of George Floyd, a black man who died in his custody in 2020. Well, a black man who was murdered in his custody in 2020. Let's be real here. Police conduct in a video of the incident in which Chauvin kneeled on Floyd's neck was widely criticized in the media and led to widespread riots both in the U.S. and worldwide. In November of last year, the ex-cop's legal team filed a motion challenging his federal conviction. Chauvin argued that his original defense attorney had failed to inform him of Kansas pathologist Dr. William Schatzel's theories, suggesting that the former officer's actions did not cause Floyd's death. On Monday, Minnesota Judge Paul Magnuson ruled that the defense be allowed to access the samples or slides of Floyd's heart tissue as well as his bodily fluids. Schatzel believes that Floyd may have died as a result of either a high level of catecholamines, a neurohormone important in stress response, or Takotsubo's myocarditis, and acute stress-induced heart condition. Are those just two different words for knee on the neck? Because that's what it seems like to me. I don't know. I'm no doctor. Trump better pardon Luigi. We need the next version of Mario Brothers. According to the initial autopsy carried out in Hennepin County Medical Examiner's Office, Floyd had several arteriosclerotic heart disease, as well as a clinical history of hypertension. That's high blood pressure, in case you didn't know that. The death was ruled a homicide with the cause of death, cardiopulmonary arrest, complicating law enforcement's subdual restraint, and neck compression. Other factors included fentanyl and methamphetamine, among other drugs found in Floyd's blood. Chauvin and three other police officers who assisted in the arrest have been convicted of causing the man's death. Or his murder. Last year, Chauvin was stabbed 22 times by another inmate using an improvised knife while serving time in the Federal Correctional Institute in Tucson, Arizona. The inmate told officers he chose Black Friday to attempt to kill the ex-cop for a symbolic connection to the Black Lives Matter movement. Chauvin was released from the hospital a few days after the attempt and was moved to a different prison in the months following. There you go. Meanwhile, Wisconsin police search for answers in a rare case of a female school shooter. So police in Wisconsin yesterday were interviewing friends and family and examining the online presence of a 15-year-old girl to determine what drove her to open fire at her private Christian school, killing a fellow student and a teacher before taking her own life. The shooter, identified by police as Natalie Rupnow, who also went by Samantha, was a student at the Abundant Life, oh God, that's an unfortunate name, Christian school in Madison, Wisconsin, the state capital. In one key way, the Madison attack is an outlier among U.S. school and mass shootings. Women and girls are far less likely to carry them out than male attackers. Only about 3% of all U.S. mass shootings are perpetrated by females, studies show. Identifying a motive is our top priority, but at this time it appears that the motive was a combination of factors, Madison Police Chief Sean Barnes told a press conference. Barnes did not provide more detail, saying he didn't want to jeopardize the investigation. Investigators are examining the girl's cell phone, computer, and online posts, as well as looking into verifying a possible manifesto that the shooter may have left behind. Some details of Rupnow's life have begun to emerge. Police have confirmed the name of the street where she lived in Madison. Online records show a person named Jeffrey Rupnow lives on the same street, and a Facebook profile belonging to a Jeff Rupnow in Madison shows photos of a newborn daughter named Natalie Lynn from 2009, 15 years ago. Jeff Rupnow's cover photo, posted in August, shows what appears to be a teenage girl trap shooting with a shotgun at a local club. In a comment on the site, Jeff Rupnow says he and his child joined the club in the spring and have been loving every second of it. Rupnow could not be reached for comment. In the photo, the girl is wearing a t-shirt of the German band KMFDM. The teenage shooters in the 1999 Columbine school massacre in Colorado were known to be avid fans of the band, and one of the killers posted the band's lyrics on his website. At the time, KMFDM issued a statement condemning the Columbine attack, expressing sympathy for the victims and affirming its music was intended to stand against violence. The sheer number of school shootings since Columbine make it almost inevitable that some will be carried out by female students, experts say, but it remains a rarity. Historically, there are factors that have led men to commit these shootings, said Jonathan Metzel, a sociology and psychiatry professor at Vanderbilt University and an expert on gun violence. Males often have easier access to firearms, and many shooters model themselves after previous attackers, most of whom were men. Some sociologists also view mass shootings as reflective of a pathology of toxic masculinity, Metzel said. And of course, men are more likely to commit violent crimes in general, not just school shootings. But other factors common to school shootings, bullying, isolation, social media, are not specific to boys. Data also shows an increase in aggression and violence among adolescent girls in recent years, according to Elizabeth Dowdle, a professor of nursing at Villanova University who has studied school shootings. Just so you know, I'm not doing cocaine. My nose is kind of stuffed up, and this my Santa mustache that I have to grow out because I'm contractually obliged is kind of itching my nose. So if you see me doing this, I'm not doing any rails. All right. I'm not doing the booger sugar. Monday's shooting took place in a study hall classroom of the small private school just before 11 a.m. 2 students remained in critical condition on Tuesday, while several other victims suffered less serious injuries, officials said. What's up, Global Solidarity? Good to see you, buddy. Police say Rupnow used a pistol, but have not said how it was obtained. Earlier this year, the Michigan parents of a school shooter in that state were found guilty for their role in allowing their son to have access to the gun he used to kill. Wisconsin officials said at Tuesday's press conference that it was far too early to say if Rupnow's parents could be held legally responsible. Police Chief Barnes said that for now it appeared that such charges were not warranted. School shootings have become a near daily occurrence in the United States, with 322 of them this year alone, according to the K-12 school shooting database. That is the second highest total of any year since 1966, topped only by last year's total of 349. Hey, at least we're down 27 shootings, right? There's still a couple weeks left. Polling shows American voters favor stronger background checks on gun buyers, temporary limits on people in crisis, and more safety requirements for gun storage at homes with children. Yet political leaders have largely declined to act, citing the U.S. constitutional protection for gun owners. Dane County Executive Melissa Agard said at Tuesday's press conference she wanted to see stricter gun laws in Wisconsin, including red flag laws that could result in guns being confiscated from at-risk people, and also laws requiring the safe storage of guns in homes. That is something I have a little bit of a problem with, the guns being confiscated from at-risk people and who decides who the at-risk people are. That's one concern I have there. Let us remember this fact. Gun violence is the number one killer of children in this country. Agard said that's a legacy we cannot accept. Right. So more school shootings, more mass shootings. This one, this time at a private school. We were talking about the Amazon workers threatening to strike in New York. Well, it's now spread to Illinois and now California. Tired of Amazon's lies, California Teamsters join the strike threat. CJK, what's up? Good to see you, buddy. Hope you're doing well this morning. And this is from Jessica Corbett over there at commondreams.org. Common Dream, like I said, Common Dream's a good site, but they tend to get a little TDS over there with the Trump derangement syndrome. But other than that, their other stories are pretty good. Exactly, Mantis. Well, they use guns, so there you go. Most of the time, if not bombs. Amazon faces a growing threat of a major walkout in the U.S., with the International Brotherhood of Teamsters announcing yesterday that workers at 4 of the online retail giant's Southern California facilities have overwhelmingly voted to authorize strikes, joining employees at sites in Illinois and New York City. The announcement for DFX4, DAX5, KSBD, and DAX8 in California came after authorizations at the Amazon delivery station DIL7 in Skokie, Illinois on Monday, as well as the Staten Island warehouse JFK8 and the DBK4 delivery station in Queens on Friday. Workers at all 7 sites want Amazon to recognize their union and negotiate wages, benefits, and working conditions. It's past time that we fight for the pay and benefits we deserve, Raymond Scarborough, a driver at DFX4 in Victorville, said in a Tuesday statement. Amazon isn't going to bully us out of demanding our rights. Oh, you've been on the train for days, passed through Chicago last night? Oh, okay. That's cool. Good to see. Yeah. I like the train when it works. Sometimes when it doesn't work, you just sit there and you're like, okay. Fellow driver Alexis Ayala, who is based at DAX5 in the City of Industry, that is in Los Angeles, declared that we're tired of Amazon's lies. Amazon is responsible for our low pay and unsafe working conditions, Ayala continued. My coworkers and I are ready to stand with our brothers and sisters around the country and fight back against this abusive company. Following the NYC votes, the Teamsters gave Amazon until Sunday to start talks. The union said Tuesday that after ignoring a December 15th deadline from the Teamsters to come to the bargaining table, Amazon now faces potential large-scale labor actions at a crucial time of year when the company should be putting workers and customers ahead of corporate profits. Workers and customers ahead of corporate profits? Now you're high. You pass me what you're smoking. Tobias Cheng, a worker at the KSBD Air Hub in San Bernardino, also highlighted the anticipated impact of a holiday season strike. We know how important our air hub is to Amazon's operation, Cheng said. If Amazon forces a strike, it might have a serious impact on customers throughout the region and beyond. Increasing pressure on Amazon to improve conditions, U.S. Senate Committee on Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions Chair Bernie the Cuck Sanders on Monday published a report detailing how, as he put it, executives repeatedly chose to put profits ahead of the health and safety of its workers by ignoring recommendations that would substantially reduce entries at its warehouse. While Amazon, which was founded by Jeff Bezos, the second richest man on earth, released a lengthy statement decrying the report as misleading, Teamsters leaders and unionized workers have echoed its conclusion in recent days. The corporate elites Elitists who run Amazon are leaving workers with no choice, Teamsters General President Sean O'Brien said of the looming strike yesterday. Greedy executives are pushing thousands of hardworking Americans to the brink. Amazon rakes in more money than anybody. They subject workers to injury and abuse at every turn, and they illegally claim not to be the rightful employer of nearly half their workforce, he asserted. This rigged system cannot continue. Amazon must be held accountable to workers and consumers alike. If workers are forced onto the picket line, Amazon will be striking itself. Riley Holsworth, a worker at DIL7, similarly noted Monday that Amazon is one of the biggest companies on earth, but we are struggling to pay our bills. And you see the same thing at Walmart, too. Making money hand over fist, and people there are on food stamps. Other workers are seeing our example and joining our movement, Holsworth added, because we're only going to get the treatment we deserve if we fight for it. Bing, bang, bong, bing, bingity, bing, bing. That's how you do it. Right? What's up, D? Good to see you around the world. D and friends. Ooh, I'm having a little bit of issues. There we go. And Bernie was talking about the conditions at Amazon. All right, you can go away. So, yeah, he does do the investigating pretty well. It's just his actually doing something about it is what lacks with Bernie Sanders. Sanders-led investigation finds Amazon manipulates workplace injury data. This is what we're talking about. The online retailer repeatedly ignored or rejected worker safety measures that were recommended internally and even misleadingly presents workers' injury data so that its warehouses seem safer than they actually are, according to a report from Senate Committee on Health. Bernie's committee that we just mentioned. Sanders called the revelations in the report beyond unacceptable. Amazon's executives repeatedly chose to put profits ahead of the health and safety of its workers by ignoring recommendations that would substantially reduce injuries at its warehouses. This is precisely the type of outrageous corporate greed that the American people are sick and tired of, added Sanders, who has scrutinized Amazon's safety record in the past, when it was safe, that is. According to the report, Amazon's warehouses are far more dangerous than competitors or the warehousing industry in general. The committee found that in comparison with the industry as a whole, Amazon warehouses tallied 31% more injuries than the average warehouse in 2023 when comparing Amazon's reported data and industry averages calculated by the Bureau of Labor Statistics. What's more, the company's injury rate is nearly double the average injury rate for all non-Amazon warehouses stretching back to 2017, according to the report. This runs counter to how Amazon frames their injury rates in public statements. For one, according to the report, the company touts a 30% decline in injury rates since 2019, but that year saw a spike in injuries compared to the 2 years prior, meaning that the comparison is misleading. In fact, the injury rate for 2020 and 2023 were essentially the same, 6.59 and 6.54, respectively. The report also alleges the company manipulates injury data by repeatedly comparing injury numbers stemming from Amazon warehouses of all sizes to the industry average for just large warehouses, a category that includes warehouses with 1,000 employees or more and tend to have a higher injury rate. Only 40% of Amazon's warehouses fall in this category, making the comparison a false equivalence, the report states. The report, which was based on an investigation that began in 2023 and included interviews with over 130 Amazon workers, also concluded that the company does in practice impose productivity quotas on workers, even though Amazon claims publicly that it does not. The cops say the same thing, too. They say they don't have quotas, but cops have quotas. And this drive toward productivity and speed contributes to the company's unsafe working environment. Exactly, Steve. Strike. Demand your rights. That's the only way you're going to get it. You sure as fuck ain't going to do it by electing these motherfuckers. Most workers who spoke to the committee had experienced at least one injury during their time at the company. Those injuries range from herniated discs and torn rotator cuffs to sprained ankles and sharp-shooting muscle pains. Workers also reported torn meniscuses, concussions, back injuries, and other serious conditions, according to the report. I think the meniscus is in your knee, right? Like fucked up knees. Amazon itself is aware of the connection between speed and worker safety, but refuses to implement injury-reducing changes because of concerns those changes might reduce productivity. Isn't that nice? So, yeah, anyway, For example, 4 years ago, the company launched an initiative called Project Soteria, which found evidence of a link between speed and injuries and made recommendations based on this link, but Amazon did not implement changes in response to the findings per the report. Later in 2021, another team called Project Elderwand, interesting, calculated the maximum number of times workers who have a specific role can repeat a set of physical tasks before increasing their risk of injury. That team developed a method to make sure that workers do not exceed that number, but upon learning how much this would impact the customer experience, the company decided not to implement the change, the report states. My first day was the day the facility opened. People of all ages were there. Most were like me, though, young and healthy. Within weeks, everyone is developing knee and back pain, said one former Amazon worker who was quoted anonymously in the report. In a public statement released Monday, Amazon rejected the Help Committee's findings, writing that the premise of the report is fundamentally flawed, because they use facts. And in response to the report's section on injury rates, we benchmark ourselves against similar employers because it's the most effective way to know where we stand. Well, but your employees aren't standing because they have health issues. That's the point. The company also calls the Project Soteria paper analytically unsound. The report details that Amazon audited the initial findings of Project Soteria, and a second team hypothesized that worker injuries were actually a result of workers' frailty. The workers' frailty. Yeah, because they keep hiring all these people like, Mr. Glass, who have all these bone problems. It says that Project Elderwand is merely proof that the company regularly looks at its safety processes to ensure they're as strong as they can be. As we have publicly disclosed and discussed with committee members during this investigation, we've made and continue to make meaningful progress on safety across our network, according to the statement. Amazon's record on worker safety has been under close scrutiny in recent years. The Strategic Organizing Center, which is a democratic coalition of multiple labor unions, has also put out research on injuries at Amazon. Safety was among the reasons that workers at an Amazon facility in Staten Island chose to unionize in 2022. That Amazon facility and another in New York recently authorized a strike. Additionally, over the summer, California's Labor Commissioner's Office fined Amazon nearly $6 million, chump change, for tens of thousands of violations of a California law aimed at curbing the use of worker quotas. Yeah, so I think we all know that Amazon is not a healthy place to work. Yeah. Hey, what's up, Prop? Good to see you. I do smell like toes. How'd you know? You've never smelled me, but yet you knew. Greenlumpsum.org over on Facebook. Hello, the robots don't care. I know, robots don't care. Robots don't care about your feelings, like your physical feelings, like if your meniscus is fucked up. Why are you doing this? No. You can stop there. You can stop there, mister. We shan't be using you. So I know you've been worried about this, about the government shutdown, possibly over the weekend that's coming up. Well, you could just hold on, because, once they go bipartisan, you never go back, right? Congress strikes deal to avert government shutdown. There's this guy. Congressional leaders have struck a bipartisan deal to keep the government funded beyond a looming December 20th shutdown deadline. Legislation rolled out by leadership yesterday would kick the Friday funding deadline to March 14th of next year to buy more time for the next Congress and incoming president to hash out how the government should be funded for much of next year. The newly unveiled 1,500-page package, giggity, also features a host of add-ons, including a one-year farm bill extension, roughly $100 billion in disaster relief, about $10 billion in economic assistance for farmers, and other authorizations. What are these other authorizations? The deal wraps up weeks of negotiations over disaster aid and overall funding, most recently a clash over farm aid, and marks the last funding deal of a divided Congress before Washington welcomes its next class in January. Details of the deal had already begun to come into focus ahead of the release Tuesday as House Speaker Mike Johnson braced members for the major package, including the disaster relief for areas hard hit by Hurricanes Helene and Milton. The bill covers nearly $30 billion in funding for FEMA, as officials have sounded the alarm over the agency's disaster relief fund in recent months. Lawmakers agreed on more than $2 billion in funding for the Small Business Administration after officials said its disaster loan program, which businesses and homeowners rely on for low-interest loans to recover from disasters, ran out of funds during hurricane season. Yeah, it all went to fucking Ukraine and Israel. That's where it went. Ran out of funds. The bill also includes $10 billion in economic assistance for farmers, with billions more in disaster relief for farmers. Agricultural aid had emerged as a key sticking point in recent days, and the agreement came after some Republicans threatened to vote against the stopgap measure if it did not include economic assistance for farmers and ranchers. The bill also includes 500 pages of health care provisions, including pharmaceutical benefit manager industry reforms, that's PBM, extensions of Medicare telehealth flexibilities. How about extensions of Medicare, period? Just do it. Why not? Just do it. Executive order. Let's do it now. You got a few weeks. You got a couple weeks. Reauthorizations of legislation to prevent pandemics and address the opioid crisis, payments to community health centers, a rollback of physician payment cuts. And it contains a one-year extension of the 2018 Farm Bill, as well as an extension of the National Flood Insurance Program's authorization. Overall, House GOP leadership said the designated emergency and disaster funding tacked on to the continuing resolution clocks in at about $110 billion, with no offsets included. I'm always happy to look at any offsets we have and that we can pass, and so far we haven't been able to get something to get the votes for them, House Appropriations Chair Tom Cole told The Hill on Tuesday when asked about past discussions around offsets. Still, the lack of offsets is sure to upset conservatives who have called for any additional funding to be offset with savings elsewhere. Senate Agriculture Chair Debbie Stabenow also took aim at Republicans for not repurposing dollars from the Conservation and Rural Energy funding from the Inflation Reduction Act into the Farm Bill, as she said Democrats had proposed. Moving those resources would have made a permanent and lasting investment in popular conservation and energy programs while adding nearly $20 billion to the Farm Bill baseline and creating an additional $10 billion offset, she said in a statement. This could have been used to increase economic assistance, as Democrats proposed, or it could have been invested in other Farm Bill needs. This idea had bipartisan support among the committee leaders and would have greatly helped Congress write a new Farm Bill next year. House Agriculture Chair Glenn Thompson told The Hill earlier yesterday that he also would have backed a potential pay for and was unsure why it didn't make the cut. I don't understand the resistance to it or who resisted it, but obviously I'm supportive of it, he said, adding, it'll be a good pay for us to use in the future. Johnson said the goal was for a very simple, very clean stopgap funding plan to get us into next year when we have a unified government. But yeah, a unified government. You're silly. But he added that acts of God, such as hurricanes, required disaster aid and other additions to the package. The add-ons in the bill, along with the delayed rollout, frustrated Republicans from all corners of the conference yesterday as they awaited the text of the measure. Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, you know her, complained it was akin to a year-end omnibus, which conservatives abhor. And Representative Eric Burleson, a member of the conservative House Freedom Caucus, called it a total dumpster fire. The appetite to risk shutting the government down is not there. This is the playbook that they've used for a long time, pretty successfully, Representative Ralph Norman, a member of the House Freedom Caucus, said after the party was briefed on the contents of the deal earlier yesterday. At some point, we're going to have to call them out on it. The House is expected to move quickly on the legislation as both chambers face a serious time crunch to get the package, across the finish line to avoid a shutdown before the holidays. Johnson said yesterday that the goal is to go through regular process for consideration of the text in the lower chamber. If he goes that route, the earliest lawmakers could vote on the text would be Friday under the House's 72-hour rule, which would mean the Senate needs to act quickly before the Friday midnight funding deadline. Negotiators have expressed confidence in completing their funding work under the proposed 3-month time frame, but some were hopeful of a shorter stopgap to put pressure on Congress to tie up spending sooner than next year. Defense hawks have also raised concerns about what the funding freeze could mean for the Pentagon. Some Republicans have also expressed concerns that putting off the bills further into next year could distract from other priorities the party hopes to tackle in Trump's first months back in office. The deal has attracted support from Democrats in both chambers. Of course it does, because they're all on the same team. House Appropriations Committee ranking member Rosa DeLauro said the bipartisan package will provide communities across the country with critical relief, investing $100 billion to help Americans rebuild and recover. She and other Democrats have also lauded a section of the bill they say would cover replacement costs for the Francis Scott Key Bridge in Baltimore. With the inclusion in the continuing resolution of our Baltimore Bridge Relief Act, Congress is now committed to covering the full cost of replacing the bridge. This will allow the bridge to be built as quickly as possible, Senators Ben Cardin and Chris Van Hollen said in a joint statement yesterday. Our provision also ensures that the federal taxpayers will be reimbursed through proceeds from insurance payments and litigation taken on by the Department of Justice, the Maryland Attorney General, and others. Yeah, so don't you worry, folks. That military budget's it's going to be safe. Social Security, Medicare, not so much. Meanwhile, our friends on the border above us, you know, where they have like delicious Molson triple bock beer. And poutine. You like poutine? You know, it's like French fries and gravy. Ah, delicious. Sorry. Ukrainian Nazi granddad scandal. Canadian finance minister quits. Oh, you remember her? You remember this bitch during the trucker strike? Chrystia Freeland. There she is. She said, I go bye-bye. Freeland, Canada's finance minister and deputy prime minister, resigned from Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's cabinet on Monday, citing policy disagreements and growing concerns over his economic direction. Her resignation comes in the wake of new controversy surrounding her family's past, particularly her grandfather's ties to Nazi collaboration in Ukraine. Freeland, who has served in top roles within Trudeau's Liberal government since 2013, delivered a critical resignation letter accusing the Prime Minister of prioritizing costly political gimmicks over prudent fiscal management amid looming U.S. tariff threats. She specifically opposed Trudeau's proposed sales tax holiday and $175 direct payments to Canadians, calling them unaffordable. $175? That's unaffordable? The fuck you people? Maybe don't send money to Ukraine and Israel. Sorry. Just saying. We need to take Trump's tariff threats seriously, Freeland wrote. It means keeping our fiscal powder dry and avoiding wasteful spending that undermines Canadians' trust in our leadership. Trudeau quickly appointed longtime ally Dominique LeBlanc, then public safety minister, as Freeland's replacement. He was sworn in the same day and vowed to tackle inflation and ease strained U.S.-Canada relations. However, Freeland's departure has reignited scrutiny of her family's wartime past. Her maternal grandfather, Michael Chamayak, edited a Nazi-controlled Ukrainian newspaper that disseminated anti-Semitic propaganda during World War II. Despite public records confirming his role, Freeland long dismissed the reports as Russian disinformation. Public records said your granddad was a Nazi. She's like, nuh-uh. That was her quote, N-U-H-U-H. The controversy first surfaced in 2017 when historical investigations revealed Chamaik's Nazi collaboration. Freeland insisted her grandfather fled Soviet persecution, but multiple sources, including Canadian and international media, exposed his complicity in Holocaust-era propaganda. A new book by award-winning author Peter McFarlane is said to blow the lid off the attempts to whitewash Chomiak's Nazi past, called Family Ties, How a Ukrainian Nazi and a Living Witness Link Canada to Ukraine Today. It was published this fall. Freeland has never directly addressed the full extent of her grandfather's wartime activities, maintaining that her family story reflects the complex history of Europe in the 20th century. It's all complicated, baby. You know how it is. It ain't easy. It's complicated. Critics argue that her denials have damaged her credibility. Her resignation comes as Trudeau's popularity wanes amid economic troubles and internal party unrest, with inflation rising and his government's policies under fire. Opposition leaders and some Liberal MPs have urged him not to seek a fourth term. Freeland stated she intends to continue serving as a Liberal MP and run for re-election in Toronto. She said she is not going to burn her grandfather's Nazi uniform, she says, because the kids love to play dress up at Halloween. I made that last part up. Or did I? Fake news. And he ran a paper called Krakavisti that promoted Hitler. There you go. Well, you won't have to worry about that Nazi lover anymore. Well, maybe you will. Who knows? Speaking of Nazis, you know that Israel's got the bomb, right? What? Captain Segway. U.S. declassifies explosive documents on Israel's nuclear arsenal. Dun, dun, dun. This is a partial view of the Dimona nuclear power plant in the southern occupied Al-Nakab Desert. Declassified documents cited by the U.S. National Security Archive reveal that the United States has been aware since the 1960s, that's over 60 years, of Israel's ability to produce weapons-grade plutonium at its Dimona Nuclear Research Center. The U.S. National Security Archive, established in 1985 by journalists and academics, has released a new collection of documents shedding light on Israel's nuclear program. Among these documents is a December 1960 report from the Atomic Energy Commission, the AEC, described as the first and only known report that correctly and unambiguously states that the Israeli Dimona project would include a plutonium reprocessing plant and would be linked to a weapons program, according to the archive. However, subsequent U.S. intelligence remained uncertain about Israel's reprocessing activities until the late 60s, when Israel reached the threshold of nuclear weapons capability. Around this time, a secret understanding was reportedly reached between Israel and the U.S., acknowledging Israel's status as an undeclared nuclear entity. By 1967, evidence suggested that the Dimona reprocessing plant was either complete or nearly so, and the reactor was operating at full capacity. This progress meant that Israel could potentially produce a nuclear weapon within 6 to 8 weeks, the report noted. In the following decade, according to declassified documents, the U.S. appeared to have adjusted to the reality of Israel's nuclear weapons potential. A newly released briefing book titled 1960 Intelligence Report said Israeli nuclear site was for weapons. That's a little bit clunky of a title. You should probably workshop that one. Exposes shocking revelations about the U.S. government's early awareness of Israel's nuclear weapons program. The 20 declassified documents, which include intelligence reports and diplomatic exchanges, reveal that the U.S. had serious concerns about Israel's covert nuclear activities at the Dimona facility in the Al-Nakba Desert. These documents paint a striking picture of how the U.S. monitored Israel's nuclear schemes from the late 50s and 60s, knowing all along that Dimona was more than just a research center. It was the heart of Israel's secret nuclear weapons development. One of the most significant revelations, as per the book, comes from a December 1960 report by the Joint Atomic Energy Intelligence Committee, or the JAIC, which explicitly states that the Dimona project was designed for plutonium production with the goal of developing nuclear weapons. This marked the first known U.S. intelligence report to confirm the weapons-related purpose of the Dimona facility. A second explosive document unveils then Israel Prime Minister David Ben-Gurion's fiery rebuttal to U.S. questions about Dimona, where he defiantly declared that Israel was not a satellite of America. No, it's the other way around. Rejecting any calls for international inspections or oversight, Ben-Gurion's response reveals Israel's bold strategy of nuclear secrecy, refusing to let outside scrutiny threaten its covert weapons program. At the time, this response highlighted Israel's deliberate efforts to present itself as a sheep in wolf's clothing in the external arena, while pursuing its controversial nuclear program in the internal arena. Documents detailing U.S. inspections of Dimona between 65 and 67 highlight a growing sense of skepticism among U.S. officials regarding Israeli assurances of peaceful nuclear use. Despite Israel's claims, U.S. inspectors observed inconsistencies between the information provided and what was seen at the facility. These limited inspections fueled suspicions about Israel's nuclear ambitions. A 1967 intelligence assessment delivered a bombshell revelation. Israel was just 6 to 8 weeks away from producing a nuclear weapon. This alarming disclosure marked a seismic shift in U.S. intelligence, moving from mere suspicion to near certainty about Israel's covert nuclear weapons capability, exposing how close the entity was to an unprecedented arms escalation. The documents collectively highlight Israel's strategy of nuclear ambiguity, known as Imminent, which allowed it to maintain a nuclear deterrent without officially acknowledging it. This policy complicated U.S. efforts to enforce global non-proliferation while preserving its alliance with Israel. In short, the declassified documents revealed that by the early 60s, the U.S. possessed substantial intelligence indicating Israel's nuclear program was geared towards weapons development, a fact that remained hidden from public view for decades. They also underscore the intricate balancing act of the U.S. foreign policy, where national security priorities and strategic alliances often clash with non-proliferation goals. As Israel continues to maintain its policy of nuclear ambiguity, the question remains, what role does Israel, as an undeclared nuclear power, play in shaping the current landscape of regional and global nuclear politics, particularly paired with its actions in Gaza, widely criticized as genocidal? Should the global community be more alarmed? And the answer is 2 words. Fuck yes, the international community, the global community should be concerned. Because these motherfuckers don't care. They get pushed into the corner. They're gonna use nukes. I'm not saying. I'm just saying. We know they have them, and they can produce a weapon at any time. So, but self-defense. You want to talk to Samson? Fly you to the moon like that bitch Alice Cramden? What the hell? I know that reference. So as brazen as these motherfuckers are, of course, they're continuing their expansion inside Syria. Israel expanding operations in southern Syria towards key dams. And these assholes right here. Israeli occupation forces have partially withdrawn from the Al-Raqqa Dam area since near Saida al-Galan in the southern countryside of Quneitra. A local Syrian source told Al-Mayadeen on Tuesday. The source reported that the withdrawing forces redeployed to Tel al-Saki or al-Saki in the occupied Golan Heights, a position overlooking the Yarmouk Basin and southern Quneitra. However, the Israeli forces maintained a presence along the axis stretching from Barracks 74 to the valleys of Raqqa and Taim, focusing their operations near key water sources and dams in southern Syria. Simultaneously, Israeli occupation forces have installed advanced communication equipment on Jabal Qurs al-Nafal, west of Haider in Qunetra's countryside. According to local sources, this strategic elevation directly overlooks the occupied town of Majd al-Shams and critical Israeli supply routes toward the Lebanese border. Earlier yesterday, an Al-Mayadeen correspondent reported Israeli incursions into Saida in the occupied Golan and its neighboring village of Al-Mukraz, located at the administrative border between Daraa and Quneitra. The occupation forces have also seized control of the Yarmouk Basin, including the Yarmouk River and the Al-Weda Dam, asserting dominance over key water resources in the region. Despite these advances, the Israeli forces have been unable to occupy Beit Jin, a stronghold of local resistance, and remain stationed in its surrounding areas. Additionally, they have expanded eastward near the villages of Kuwaya, Al-Maria, and Al-Qusayr, close to the Jordanian border. For the sixth consecutive day, the Israeli occupation has been advancing deeper into Syrian territory, but it now controls the Syrian side of Mount Hermon, has taken over the buffer zone in the occupied Golan Heights, and is within 15 kilometers of the Damascus-Beirut International Highway. Furthermore, the occupation has seized major freshwater resources in southern Syria, particularly in the Yarmouk Basin, signaling a strategic shift towards controlling critical infrastructure. Well, that's what you do. You either blow it up or you control it. Meanwhile, Israeli Security Minister Israel Katz visited Israeli occupation forces outposts on Mount Hermon in Syria yesterday, emphasizing the strategic importance of the area in countering threats from Hezbollah in Lebanon and factions in Syria. He was accompanied by Fuckface Netanyahu, IOF Chief of Staff Herzi Halevi, Shin Bet Director Ronan Bar, and Northern Command Chief Major General Ori Gordon. Yeah, so, but, you know, HTS is like, we're not going to do anything. We don't want to fight Israel, but, you know, can you, and we reported Monday, they're like, but we can use a little help. They keep bombing the fuck out of us. You know, can you help us? Please? But we're not going to do anything about it. Yeah, talk about, like I said, talk about the dog catching the car, and then when he catches it, doesn't know what the fuck to do with it. So, of course, snipers targeting a hospital. In Israel, the Israelis doing that? What? No. What? Oh, yeah, well, I guess so. Israeli snipers target ICU of Kamal Adwan Hospital. Director pleads for help. Fred Edward, Entenmann's would get me here on time. That's something to think about. The catastrophic situation at the Kamal Adwan Hospital in northern Gaza has intensified with Israeli military snipers targeting the intensive care unit. The hospital director has said the intensive care unit was targeted for the first time by snipers, and all the hospital windows were hit, said Dr. Hussam Abu Safia on Monday, adding that this suggests that the snipers were positioned in high places. Director of Kamal Adwan Hospital, Dr. Hussam Abu Safia, calls on the international community and the World Health Organization to intervene and protect the hospital after Israeli snipers targeted the ICU staff and electricity went down due to an Israeli attack on the power generators. That's from Palestine Online. Anyone moving around the hospital wards was at risk of being hit, creating a very dangerous situation for patients and staff, said the doctor, with medical care being provided to some of the injured in the corridors. This development is very serious and something new for us, he said, adding that quadcopters were also targeting anyone who moves in the courtyard of the hospital. Jesus Christ. Israeli occupation forces have once again opened fire at the intensive care unit of Kamal Adwan Hospital in northern Gaza, causing significant damage to the facility, according to the Quds News Network. As shelling of the hospital continued, Dr. Abu Safia said it was clear that the focus is on the hospital, its building, its surroundings, and anyone moving inside it. Since Sunday, we have received about 29 injuries and 5 martyrs, said the doctor. The hospital requires urgent maintenance, he stressed, such as the repairing of generators, electricity, water, and oxygen supplies, adding that unfortunately we cannot go out to repair the damage due to the attacks. Staff and patients are enduring difficult hours without electricity, oxygen, or water, he said. Israeli strikes once again target Gaza's Kamal Adwan Hospital, cutting power to the facility where dozens of Palestinians are stuck, including those in intensive care. That's TRT World Now. The situation in the hospital is getting worse, and it will turn into a graveyard for everyone inside the hospital, he warned. The doctor reiterated his appeal for international protection, calling on the WHO and the world community to intervene urgently. WHO Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus said the conditions in the hospital are simply appalling and urged for the protection of health care and for all this hell to stop. He said recent attacks have further damaged the oxygen supply, generators, and broken windows and doors at the patients' rooms. In the last week, the WHO chief added 4 WHO missions to the hospital have been arbitrarily denied, including the redeployment of the International Emergency Medical Team, which had self-evacuated from the hospital on December 6 due to hostilities. This has left the hospital without specialized personnel for surgical and maternal care, he stressed. 2 days ago, the WHO and its partners reached the hospital and managed to deliver fuel, food, and medicines, as well as transferred 3 patients and 6 companions to Al-Shifa Hospital. According to the Euromed Human Rights Monitor, Israel is routinely targeting medical teams in the north of Gaza to destroy the health system and impose intolerable living conditions on civilians while denying them access to life-saving care. Israel has attacked the hospital located in the Beit Lahia project more than 20 times in the past 10 days, injuring several patients, medical personnel, and their companions. The few medical teams that have remained in northern Gaza are being targeted by the Israeli occupation army in a methodical, obvious, and recurring pattern. This makes it extremely difficult to provide medical care to the tens of thousands of residents who have been under siege for 69 days and continues to prevent ambulance and civil defense crews from working for 51 days now. In addition to the cycle of killing that has affected tens of thousands of Palestinian civilians in northern Gaza, Euromed Monitor's review of the Israeli military's targeting records and victims lists reveal a systematic, widespread policy of killing and assassinating Palestinian elites and those with competencies in various sectors. The number of Palestinian medical personnel who have been killed since October 7th is 1,057 and more, October 7th of last year, and more than 135 scientists and academics have also been killed, the report stated. This list includes journalists, 193 of whom have been killed in the same period, as well as experts in computer engineering, programming, and IT, plus other influential people in these crucial spheres of society. Euromed Monitor called on the UN and all nations to carry out their international legal duties to prevent the continuation of Israel's crime of genocide in Gaza, as well as impose a comprehensive arms embargo on Israel and defend medical personnel and health facilities in the enclave from any further targeting. One other thing Israel says now, that, once they've blown up all the hospitals and everything, once they've killed everybody, then they're just going to occupy Gaza. So, Israeli Defense Minister says Israeli military will occupy Gaza after the war. This is from Dave DeCamp over there at antiwar.com. Make sure you're checking them out for all different sources of news stories, including their own that they cultivate. Seriously, I'll be glad to shave this fucking mustache off. You do shit for a bit, and then you pay for it. Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz yesterday said that the Israeli military will occupy Gaza like it does the West Bank, even after the genocidal war in the Strip comes to an end. After we defeat Hamas's military and governmental power in Gaza, Israel will have security control over Gaza with full freedom of action, just as it did in Judea and Samaria, the West Bank, Katz wrote on the tweeters. Katz comments comes amid reports that Israel and Hamas are close to a hostage deal that would involve a temporary ceasefire. However, on Tuesday, Israeli officials told Axios that significant gaps remain and an agreement is not imminent, despite optimistic statements. Hamas reportedly conceded not to seek an Israeli military withdrawal as part of the deal, but Hamas officials are saying their proposal involved a gradual end to the Israeli military presence, meaning Katz's comments could sabotage negotiations. According to Middle East Eye, Israeli media reported that Israel plans to keep troops in place in Gaza to prevent displaced Palestinians from returning to northern Gaza, where the IDF has been carrying out an ethnic cleansing plan known as the General's Plan. Israeli ministers and Knesset members have not been shy about their desire to establish Jewish settlements in northern Gaza, and settler leaders have already gone to scout locations. Haaretz reported on Tuesday that Israel and Saudi Arabia reached a breakthrough in normalization talks that could lead to a Gaza hostage deal, but it was swiftly denied by fuckhead Benjamin Netanyahu. The report said Israel agreed to make some vague commitment toward a Palestinian state, which Netanyahu said was obviously false, or absolutely false. Netanyahu has acted and is acting against the establishment of a Palestinian state that would endanger the security of Israel, the Prime Minister's office said in a statement. So, with everything going on over there, of course, Turkey is in the mix when it comes to Syria, as Turkey masses troops on the Syria border. Invasion imminent. Not Entenmann's, but imminent. The Turkish-backed Syrian National Army, the SNA, announced the start of an operation against the Kurdish-led Syrian Democratic Forces, the SDF, in the northern Syrian town of Kobani, Ain al-Arab, on December 17th, which was yesterday. The announcement came in the midst of a buildup of Turkish troops on the Syrian border in preparation for a possible invasion alongside its proxies in the SNA. Al-Mayadeen's correspondent stated that Turkey wants a security belt 30 kilometers wide on the border with Syria, stressing that it is close to achieving its goal. The Turkish military has built a concrete barrier between Kobani and the Turkey border, while Turkish warplanes can be seen flying above the city. The U.S. media has reported that Turkey is building up its forces along the border in preparation for a possible invasion. The Wall Street Journal reported that, according to one U.S. official, a Turkish cross-border operation could be imminent. Wall Street Journal adds that SNA fighters and Turkish uniformed commandos and artillery in large numbers are now concentrated near Kobani, a Kurdish-majority city in Syria on the northern border with Turkey. Turkey began building up its forces near the border 2 weeks ago as militants from HTS, a UN-designated terror group, toppled the government of Syrian President Bashar al-Assad and occupied the capital, Damascus. Kurdish forces under the People's Protection Units, the YPG, began taking control of Kurdish-majority areas in Syria in 2012 with the outbreak of war in 2011. Turkey has sought to prevent Kurds from forming contiguous regions in areas of Syria on its southern border, stretching from Afrin in the northwest to Kobani in the north center and to Hasaka in the northeast. Turkey first supported ISIS and then sent its own forces to invade northern Syria multiple times to prevent such a Kurdish region from being established. The U.S. military partnered with the YPG to create the Syrian Democratic Forces, SDF, in 2015. The U.S. and SDF occupied land outside of traditional Kurdish control, including Sunni Arab areas containing Syria's oil fields and wheat-producing regions. The U.S. has been trying to keep Syria partitioned under sanctions and unable to rebuild since the war ended in 2019. Kurdish official Ilham Ahmed urged President-elect Donald Trump to prevent a new Turkish invasion. Turkey's goal is to establish de facto control over Kurdish land before Trump takes office, forcing the U.S. to engage with them as rulers of Kurdish territory, Ahmed wrote to Trump in a letter viewed by the Wall Street Journal. If Turkey proceeds with its invasion, the consequences will be catastrophic. A spokesman for Turkey's embassy in Washington did not immediately respond to the Wall Street Journal's requests for a comment. But that's all right. Turkeys are coming. Turkeys, gobble, gobble. So what's been happening with Bashar al-Assad? Since we know he escaped to Russia, right? Hey, Go Start, what's up, buddy? Yes, fuck Israel, indeed. So we know he got there. You know he sought asylum. Putin gave it to him, so now he's breaking his silence. Assad breaks silence 1 week after fall of Damascus. I never betrayed Syria. You sure as fuck left it, though. Syria's deposed president Bashar al-Assad released on December 16th, that was Monday, his first statement since his departure to Moscow and the fall of Damascus to extremist armed groups last weekend. As terrorism spread across Syria and ultimately reached Damascus on the evening of Saturday, December 7th, questions arose about the president's fate and whereabouts. This occurred amidst a flood of misinformation and narratives far removed from the truth aimed at recasting international terrorism as a liberation revolution for Syria, Assad said. The statement was released on the social media accounts of the former Syrian presidency. Unfortunately, the prevailing circumstances at the time, including a total communication blackout for security reasons, delayed the release of this statement, Assad went on to say. According to the caption attached to the post of the former president's statement, several unsuccessful attempts to release the statement through Arabic and international media outlets failed. Assad said his evacuation of Moscow was unplanned and that he remained in Syria until the final day. As terrorist forces infiltrated Damascus, I moved to Latakia in coordination with our Russian allies to oversee combat operations. Upon arrival at the Mangione air base that morning, it became clear that our forces had completely withdrawn from all battle lines and that the last army positions had fallen. He also said the Russian air base came under heavy aerial bombardment and that Moscow arranged an immediate evacuation. This took place a day after the fall of Damascus, following the collapse of the final military positions and the resulting paralysis of all remaining state institutions, he added. At no point during these events did I consider stepping down or seeking refuge, nor was such a proposal made by any individual or party. The only course of action was to continue fighting against the terrorist onslaught. I reaffirm that the person who, from the very first day of the war, refused to barter the salvation of his nation for personal gain or to compromise his people in exchange for numerous offers and enticements is the same person who stood alongside the officers and soldiers of the army on the front lines just meters from terrorists in the most dangerous and intense battlefields. Assad also asserted that he never abandoned the resistance in Palestine and Lebanon, nor the allies that stood by Syria during 14 years of war, and the army and nation to which he belongs. When the state falls into the hands of terrorism and the ability to make a meaningful contribution is lost, any position becomes void of purpose, rendering its occupation meaningless. Hang on a second. Sorry about that. Syria's deposed president concluded, expressing hope that Syria will once again be free and independent. Damascus fell early on December 8th following a lightning offensive led by HTS and an array of Turkish-backed extremist groups with the scores of ex-ISIS commanders among their ranks, known as the Syrian National Army. And it goes on to talk about the attack began as a ceasefire, took effect between Israel and Lebanon. The Syrian army announced repeatedly over several days that it was repositioning and redeploying away from key cities as Hama and Homs fell, little to no resistance to the extremist organizations. Mass defections were also being reported shortly before the capital fell. And then it goes on to talk about HTS setting up transitional authority. So he said, I didn't plan to leave, but, I got to get the fuck out of here. Right? So that's where Assad is right now, still in Russia. He got some new bifocals. That's nice. So a lot of these rebel factions that helped HTS take over the country in Syria will now be kaput, as HTS leader says rebel factions will be disbanded. The rebel factions in Syria will be disbanded. The head of the group that led the ouster of Bashar al-Assad is pledged as the former president denounced the country's new rulers as terrorists. Assad fled Syria on December 8th as rebels led by HTS captured the capital Damascus. Ahmed al-Shara, the HTS leader, has sought to reassure minorities at home and governments abroad that the country's interim leaders will protect all Syrians as well as state institutions. Meeting Monday with members of the Druze community, he said all rebel factions would be disbanded and the fighters trained to join the ranks of the defense ministry. All will be subject to the law, he added, according to posts on the group's Telegram channel. He also emphasized the need for unity in the multi-ethnic and multi-confessional country. Syria must remain united, he said. There must be a social contract between the state and all regions to guarantee social justice. The comments came shortly after Assad broke his silence for the first time, claiming he had been evacuated from a military base at Moscow's request. Russia, along with Iran and Lebanon's Hezbollah, helped prop up Assad's rule. My departure from Syria was neither planned nor did it occur during the final hours of the battles, as some have claimed, said a statement from Assad. Moscow requested that the base's command arrange an immediate evacuation of Russia. When the state falls into the hands of terrorism and the ability to make a meaningful contribution is lost, any position becomes void of purpose. However, 5 former officials have told AFP that Assad departed Syria hours before rebel forces seized Damascus. Yeah. Oh my goodness, this mustache is itching the shit out of me. But ho, 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 only till next week, and then it goes away. December 26th, bye-bye. At least this part. I might still keep the chops, because I love the chops. So, you know, they told Russia they'd be safe for now in Syria, but, you know, Russia is like, yeah, right. Sure, buddy. Yeah, we'll be good here in Syria. So, Russia transporting military assets from Syria to Libya, Western officials say. Russia is withdrawing significant amounts of military forces and equipment from Syria and transporting it to Libya, Western officials have said. According to CNN, 2 American officials informed that the Russians have begun moving naval assets from Syria to Libya, with another Western defense official reporting that Moscow has increasingly put pressure on eastern Libyan warlord Khalifa Haftar to secure a Russian claim to a port in Benghazi. What the hell? The development came as Russian authorities continued to assess whether the new Syrian government, led by former opposition group HTS, would be open to a negotiated settlement that would allow Russian forces and assets to remain in some of its bases in Syria, namely its Khmeimim air base in Latakia and the port at Tartus. Russian forces' presence at and control over those facilities in Syria served a strategic purpose for Moscow over the past decade, enabling it to maintain access to warm waters, exert military influence, and allegedly to move illicit materials between Russia and Africa. Ooh, illicit materials. Tell me more. Its reported efforts to secure a port in Libya aimed to serve the same purpose, with the defense official saying that Moscow would be left without a Mediterranean seaport to project power on NATO's southern flank if it fails to do so. So yeah, so they're transitioning out of Syria. They see the writing on the wall, and they're getting the fuck out. You may have heard this story yesterday. Chief of Russia's nuclear protection forces killed in a Moscow bomb blast. I believe it's this gentleman right here. A senior Russian general in charge of nuclear protection forces in Moscow has been killed by a bomb hidden in an electric scooter, Russia's investigative committee said. Lieutenant General Igor Kirillov, who is chief of the troops of radiological, chemical, and biological defense, was killed yesterday outside an apartment building on Ryazansky Prospect. Igor Kirillov, the head the radiation thing, the forces of the armed forces, radiation chemical guy, and his assistant were killed, the investigative committee said. Russia's TASS news agency reported, quoting a law enforcement official, that the explosive device had a capacity of some 300 grams in TNT equivalency. Excuse me. A source within the Ukrainian security service, the SBU, told Al Jazeera it was behind the attack. We claim our responsibility for the bombing of the head of the Russian radiological, chemical, and biological defense forces, Igor Kirillov, the source said. Reuters and AFP news agency also cited a source within the SBU that the agency was behind the general's killing and called him a legitimate target. Ukraine has yet to officially comment on the incident. Photographs posted on Russian Telegram channels showed a shattered entrance to a building littered with rubble and 2 bodies lying in the blood-stained snow. A criminal case has been opened. Russia's radioactive, chemical, and biological defense troops are special forces who operate under conditions of those kinds of contamination. not saying RCB. Al Jazeera's Maria Shapovalova, reporting from Moscow, said, according to residents, there was a lack of surveillance cameras in the area where the attack took place. Residents of the residential complex where the explosive device went off have been complaining for years about the lack of normal video surveillance. The cameras were not recording what was happening on those block of flats, she said. Russia has accused Ukraine of carrying out a number of assassinations on its soil since its full-scale invasion of Ukraine began in February 2022, including the August 2022 killing of Daria Dugina, the daughter of Russian ultranationalist Alexander Dugin, in a car bombing. Dmitry Medvedev, deputy head of Russia's Security Council chaired by President Putin, described the attack as an attempt by Kiev to distract public attention away from its military failures and vowed that its senior military political leadership will face inevitable retribution. Foreign Ministry spokesperson and the light of my life, Maria Zakharova, decried what she said was the West's failure to condemn the killing. An entire day has passed where is at least some sort of reaction from abroad. Where are the civilized ones, the objective ones, she wrote on the Telegram messaging app. I love it because she's so saucy. Because when she said civilized and objective, she was not being sincere. The assassination, she said, was a continuation and further development of the West's spiral of approval of the war crimes of the Kiev's regime fighters. There was no immediate comment from Putin. The U.S. said it was not involved in the killing of the senior army officer, but denounced his atrocities. I can tell you the U.S. was not aware of its advance, was not involved. Wink, 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 said human caterpillar Matthew Miller, winking so much that his eye fell out. He was a general who was involved in a number of atrocities. He was involved in the use of chemical weapons against the Ukrainian military, Miller said. On Monday, Ukrainian prosecutors charged Kirillov in absentia with the alleged use of banned chemical weapons in Ukraine, the Security Service of Ukraine said, according to the Kiev Independent. Russia denies those accusations. In October, the UK sanctioned Kirillov and the Nuclear Protection Forces for using riot control agents, and multiple reports of the use of toxic agent chloropicrin on the battlefield. Chloropicrin is an oily liquid with a pungent odor known as a choking agent that was widely used during World War I as a form of tear gas. Oh, man, we're going all the way back to World War I, huh? The Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons, the OPCW, specifically prohibits its use. Russia has said it no longer possesses a military chemical arsenal, but the country faces pressure for more transparency over the alleged use of toxic weapons. The SBU said it had recorded more than 4,800 uses of chemical weapons on the battlefield, particularly K1 combat grenades, since February 2022. So, alleged chemical provocations exposed by murdered Russian general. So Kirillov, who along with his assistant was killed yesterday in a Moscow assassination allegedly carried out by Ukraine, was Russian military's top official on the hazards posed by the weapons of mass destruction. He commanded the military branch responsible for protecting troops and civilians from chemical and biological weapons and from the radioactive fallout of a nuclear strike or dirty bomb attack. He was also in charge of military investigations into numerous high-profile cases directly and indirectly involving Russia. He delivered over 40 briefings about the findings he made by specialists under his command since being appointed in 2017. He also regularly offered his expert opinion to Russian officials and the media. His work came as allegations of chemical weapons use became an increasingly frequent tool in Western foreign policy over the past decade. A turning point was arguably the war in Syria and claims by then U.S. President Barack Obama that Damascus had deployed chemical weapons against opposition forces, thus crossing an alleged red line. In a Russia-mediated attempt to deflate tensions, the Syrian government agreed in 2013 to destroy all of its declared stockpiles of such weapons. However, more incidents followed, which the West blamed on government forces. alleging that Damascus never actually fulfilled its obligations. Moscow, meanwhile, maintained that anti-government groups were conducting false flag operations, while foreign-funded organizations such as the notorious White Helmets were providing media support. And it was like, I believe it was, I know Aaron Matei had mentioned about Syria, how they had faked it, that Syria had not actually used those weapons. But think what you will about Aaron Matei's reporting. That's where that came from. However, more incidents followed when the West blamed on government forces, alleging that Damascus never actually fulfilled its obligations. Okay, the White Helmets. Okay. The Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons, the OPCW, which has a mandate to investigate such allegations, was compromised by Western influence, Russia believes. Syrian authorities demanded on numerous occasions that the OPCW deploy specialists on the ground for investigation, but received refusals that cited lack of security, Krylov said during a briefing in 2018 as he detailed cases of alleged manufacturing of chemical weapons by militant groups. The same year, the OPCW faced what was arguably its worst internal crisis while investigating a chemical attack in the city of Douma. According to whistleblowers, its top management suppressed findings by field investigators and manipulated testimony to implicate Damascus. Dissenting scientists argued behind closed doors that the evidence contradicted such a claim, only to be dismissed as disgruntled employees when they went public. Disgruntled employees. Krylov reported in 2019 that Russian troops deployed in Syria conducted hundreds of tests for traces of chemical weapons as part of their monitoring mission. So yeah, now that Assad is gone, they're saying, well, hey, let's hand over those chemical weapons, and they're like, what? Wait, what? Huh? Meanwhile, China has ran out of fucks when it comes to their top government officials doing crimes. They kill them. They don't. There's no fines. They fucking kill people. China executes former top government official. China has executed a former official who was convicted of corruption totaling more than 3 billion won. That's 412 million American. CCTV has reported citing a court in the North Inner Mongolia Autonomous Region. I used to live there. Man, it was great. Had a little trailer there. It was nice. The execution comes as part of a widespread anti-corruption crackdown by the authorities in Beijing. Li Jianping, former secretary of the Communist Party Working Committee on the Hohhot Economic and Technological Development Zone, was found guilty of crimes including bribery, misappropriation of public funds, and colluding with a criminal syndicate. The 64-year-old Li had initially been sentenced to death in September 2022 after authorities found he had leveraged his position as a state employee to embezzle funds. He lost an appeal this August, and the verdict was then approved by China's Supreme People's Court. Today, on the China's Supreme Police Court, People's Court. It was carried out yesterday. Top court verified that Li misused over 1.437 billion won, about $197 million, from state-owned company funds through deceptive means, of which more than 289 million won, or 39.6 million, has yet to be recovered. Additionally, he took more than 577 million won, about 79.2 million, in bribes in exchange for providing benefits, and embezzled over, I'm just going to go with the American numbers here, 137 million in public funds, with more than 55.4 million still unrecovered before the case was exposed, according to Chinese media reports. Last month, the former chairman of the Bank of China, Liu Liange, was sentenced to death with a 2-year reprieve for accepting bribes worth the equivalent of nearly $17 million and illegally issuing loans. The 2-year suspension, which was granted because the accused had cooperated with the authorities and shown remorse, means that the sentence will only be carried out if Liu commits further crimes during the period. If reprieved, he will serve a life sentence. Since securing his third term in office in 2022, Chinese President Xi Jinping has stepped up his anti-corruption efforts Multiple billionaires and bankers have been expelled from the party and jailed over the course of Beijing's sweeping campaign against graft or grifting. Graft. The campaign enjoys a considerable public support, although critics claim it allows the president to consolidate power by replacing rivals with loyalists in key positions, especially the criminal ones. He's like, "Oh, you creeps, you get the fuck out. I kills you. I'll put you in jail." Meanwhile, over in Africa, particularly East Africa, Cyclone Cheeto was pretty devastating. A lot of this weather this year has just been over the top. So this is from African News. Let's check out this report real quick.
France rushed in rescuers and supplies to its Indian Ocean territory of Mayotte, which was hit by a devastating cyclone over the weekend. Air Force jets carried water, food and medical supplies, as well as emergency personnel. The tiny island was battered Saturday by Cyclone Cheeto, its worst in nearly a century. Authorities fear hundreds and possibly thousands of people have died. Today we're sending food supplies. On Sunday we were focused on sending medical supplies, supplies for a field hospital and the personnel who man it. Today the priority is foodstuff, water purification sets, preserved food, bottles of water and milk which can help the people of Mayotte to re-establish themselves fast and well. Cheeto hit Mayotte on Saturday morning with wind speeds exceeding 220 kilometers an hour. It also impacted surrounding nations, bringing heavy rainfall and damaging houses in Madagascar, Mozambique, and the Comoros Islands.
Yeah, so France used ships and military aircraft to rush rescuers and supplies to Mayotte after the island was battered by its worst cyclone in nearly a century, they said. So, meanwhile, the U.S. says all staff in the quake-hit embassy in Vanuatu are safe. More quakes, y'all. More quakes. All staff in the quake-wrecked U.S. embassy in Vanuatu are safe and accounted for, the country's embassy in Papua New Guinea said Tuesday. So, if you're not familiar with that, it's just north of Australia there. While the U.S. Embassy building sustained significant damage, all personnel were able to safely evacuate the building, it said in a statement on social media. The ground floor of a 4-story block in Port Vila, used by the U.S., French, and other embassies, was completely flattened. The U.S. said it was closing the mission until further notice because of the destruction. The bottom floor of the embassy block no longer exists, Vanuatu resident Michael Thompson told AFP by satellite phone after posting images of the destruction on social media. It is just completely flat. The top 3 floors are still holding, but they have dropped. And speaking of earthquakes, y'all might remember this. Asia to mark 20 years since the Indian Ocean tsunami of 2004. Tsunami hit nations will next week commemorate the more than 220,000 people who died in the Boxing Day disaster 2 decades ago when huge waves tore into coastal communities around the Indian Ocean. Beachside memorials and religious ceremonies will be held across Asia in Indonesia, Sri Lanka, India, and Thailand, which were the worst hit by one of the deadliest disasters in modern history. On December 26, 2004, tsunami waves as high as 30 meters or 98 feet in some areas wiped out coastal areas, splintering families, left thousands homeless, and killed tourists on their winter breaks to palm-fringed beaches. My children, wife, father, mother, all of my siblings were swept away, said survivor and fisherman in India's Assam province, Baharuddin Zainam. The same tragedy was felt by others as well. We feel the same feelings. An undersea 9.1 magnitude quake caused the biggest fault line fracture ever recorded, sending giant waves hurtling toward coastal communities around the Indian Ocean basin. The seabed being ripped open pushed waves at double the speed of a bullet train, crossing the Indian Ocean within hours without warning. A total of 226,408 people died as a result of the tsunami, according to EMDAT, a recognized global disaster database. In Indonesia, where more than 160,000 died, mourners will gather in Banda Aceh for a series of ceremonies, starting with a moment of silence shortly before 8 a.m. local time, when the disaster struck. Government officials, NGO representatives, and members of the public will visit a mass grave in Banda Aceh, where nearly 50,000 bodies are buried, before an evening mass prayer at the city's Grand Mosque. In Sri Lanka, where more than 35,000 people were killed, a rebuilt express train hit by the giant waves 20 years ago will ride from capital Colombo to the same spot at Paralia, where it was ripped off the tracks. A brief religious ceremony will be held with relatives of the dead from the incident that killed about 1,000 passengers, as well as residents who got onto the train after the first wave inundated the low-lying area. I could imagine that being on a train and then seeing the fucking giant wave coming at you. Buddhist, Hindu, Christian, and Muslim ceremonies will also be held to commemorate victims across the South Asian island nation. In Thailand, where official figures say more than 5,000 were killed, around half of them foreign tourists, and 3,000 left missing, hundreds of people are expected to attend a government memorial ceremony set for December 26th. Which should be a week from tomorrow. Among those invited are representatives of the foreign countries, whose tourists made up around 2,500 of the dead. In a hotel in Phang Nga province, there will be a tsunami exhibition, a documentary screening, and introductions by government and UN bodies on disaster preparedness and resilience measures. See, after all this happened, that's when they started inventing the tsunami alerts, right? They started putting up buoys and stuff like that. Almost 250,000 people, man. That's insane. Dead. Local residents and mourners from across Thailand are likely to hold unofficial candlelit vigils all along the beach. A commemorative walk-run set for December 27th will begin at the Ban Nam Kem Tsunami Memorial Park, a coastal garden with a Buddha statue and a curved concrete wall representing a wave, before stopping at the nearby Tsunami Museum. Nearly 300 people were killed as far away as Somalia, as well as more than 100 in the Maldives and a dozen in Malaysia and Myanmar. There was no warning system in the Indian Ocean in 2004, but as we said today, a sophisticated network of monitoring stations has cut down warning times. It is important for all of us to know, disseminate, and simulate disasters, said Indonesian teacher Marziani, who goes by one name and who lost a child in the 2004 tsunami. If we had known back then the mountain wasn't far, we could have run from it. Yeah. So 20 years ago, I remember when that went down too. And the videos, it kind of reminds you of the Fukushima video of the tsunami there. And it just looks like somebody had spilled this giant glass of water and it just kept going across and just wouldn't stop, just decimated everything. Meanwhile, at the UN, you know, they try to call out Nazis and tell you how bad they are. Meanwhile, some people are like, Nazis, come on. That was so long ago. NATO states vote against UN anti-Nazi resolution. There's a shock. Are you shocked? I am. Oh, the humanity. The UN General Assembly has approved a Russian proposed resolution on combating the glorification of Nazism, despite opposition from Ukraine and a significant group of Western countries, aka the Nazi countries. The vote on a draft document titled Combating Glorification of Nazism, Neo-Nazism, and Other Practices that Contribute to the Fueling Contemporary Forms of Racism, Racial Discrimination, Xenophobia, and Related Intolerance. Oh my God, what a hell of a title. Took place yesterday. The resolution was adopted 119 votes in favor, 53 against, and 10 abstentions. So 63 countries said Nazism, we should probably take a second look at that. Oh, your friend's parents died and all that in the tsunami stuff. Those opposing the resolution included Ukraine, which Russia has long accused of promoting neo-Nazi ideology, and many of Kiev's supporters, including, here comes the greatest hits, NATO members Canada, France, Germany, the UK, the US, the Baltic states, and Poland. Notable abstentions included Switzerland and Turkey. Speaking after the vote, Maria Zabolotskia, Russia's deputy permanent representative to the UN, described the resolution as aimed at dialogue and cooperation, not at sticking labels. Fighting Nazism is one of the primary functions of the UN, which was created in the aftermath of the horrors of World War II, she argued. Zabolotskia voiced concern about what she said was an attempt by Western countries to sow discord among UN member states and complicate international cooperation in combating neo-Nazism, racism, and xenophobia. However, according to the Russian official, the vote's results showed that the global majority was still opposed to Nazism in all of its forms. Thank God for that. What's up, CBC voter? Good to see you. A representative of Ukraine explained the opposition to the resolution, claiming that Russia had lost all moral rights to position itself as a global advocate against Nazism due to the ongoing conflict between Moscow and Kiev. Oh, you mean the fact that they're fighting Nazis? It doesn't make them a good advocate against Nazism. I mean, say what you will about Russia, but at least they are not Nazis. Unlike some people. In light of this, the resolution was amended with a paragraph expressing alarm about Russia allegedly seeking to justify its territorial aggression against Ukraine on the purported basis of eliminating neo-Nazism, which supposedly seriously undermines genuine attempts to combat neo-Nazism. What? Wait a minute. To justify its territorial aggression against Ukraine on the purported basis. All right. Zabolotskaya described the amendment as a ruse to undermine global efforts to fight Nazism. The resolution on combating Nazism is not legally binding, but rather serves as a reflection of the collective opinion of the international community. In particular, the document expresses deep concern about the glorification of the Nazi movement, including erecting giggity monuments, holding demonstrations, whitewashing this ideology while hailing efforts to combat history revisionism. Yeah. So, fight Nazis, but you don't have the moral ground to do that. Speaking of Nazis, no, I really shouldn't say that, but it is a segue, and I'll own it. German parliament votes no confidence in Chancellor Scholz, paving way for election. The German parliament accepted Chancellor Olaf Scholz's invitation to withdraw its confidence in him and his government on Monday, clearing the way for the February 23rd early election necessitated by the collapse of his government. Scholz's three-party coalition fell apart last month after the pro-market free Democrats quit in a row over debt, I guess in a disagreement over debt, leaving his Social Democrats and the Greens without a parliamentary majority just when Germany faces a deepening economic crisis. Under rules designed to prevent the instability that facilitated the rise of fascism in the 30s, President Frank-Walter Steinmeier can only dissolve parliament and call elections if the chancellor calls and loses a confidence vote. Only 200 of the 7 parliaments only 207 of the parliament's 733 expressed confidence, while 394 withheld it. The motion is passed, said Parliament President Bearable Boss, or Double B, as he's known to his peeps on the street. Yo, Double B, what's up, BB? So you may remember France's previous president, what was his name? For Nicolas Sarkozy. Well, he's back in the news, just in case you wanted to know about that. So France's highest court upholds Sarkozy's corruption conviction. There he is. I'm the ghost of Christmas past. The Cour de Cassation, France's highest court, upheld yesterday or today former President Nicolas Sarkozy's conviction for corruption and influence peddling. Sarkozy had appealed against the 2021 conviction for corruption and influence peddling, in which he had been handed a 3-year prison sentence. 2 of the years were suspended, and Sarkozy would wear an electronic monitoring bracelet instead of going to prison for the last year. Patrice Spinosi, lawyer for Sarkozy, said Sarkozy would appeal to the European Court for Human Rights to challenge the ruling. The challenge that I will be bringing to the European Court of Human Rights may, alas, lead to a condemnation against France, wrote Sarkozy on the tweeters. I want to once again state that I am clearly innocent. He said, I thought it was a cat. I thought it was a skunk. I did not know it was a cat with a white stripe painted down his back. Spinosi added Sarkozy would comply with the ruling, which forces him to wear an electronic bracelet. God damn. But would continue to use all legal means available to him to prove his innocence. Sarkozy, a conservative who remains an important figure in French politics even after leaving office in 2012, had been found guilty by a lower court of trying to bribe a judge and of peddling influence in exchange for confidential information about a probe into his 2007 campaign finances. The court found that Sarkozy conspired to secure a job in Monaco for a judge in exchange for inside information about an investigation into allegations that Sarkozy had accepted illegal payments from L'Oréal heiress Liliane Bettencourt. L'Oréal. The judge, Gilbert Azebert, was also convicted for corruption and influence peddling. Sarkozy is expected to stand trial next year on corruption and illegal financing charges related to alleged Libyan funding of his successful 2007 presidential bid. Sarkozy denies all wrongdoing. If convicted in the Libya case, Sarkozy could face up to 10 years in prison. Sarkozy's predecessor, Jacques Chirac, a fellow conservative, is the only other president in modern French history to be convicted by a court. Chirac was found guilty of corruption in 2011, 4 years after he left office. Man, these French leaders, man, are just fucking. And then you got Macron in there now. Nobody likes him either. The ghost of Queef. Yeah. So. Meanwhile, so France is it's wild. It's like the French people will get out and protest on a moment's notice, right? Love that part. But their government, that's the thing. It's like all these countries, the people seem to be cool. It's their governments that suck ass, right? We need to turn this around. But see, that's the thing. You vote in and you vote out, and you vote in and you vote out, and you still get the same damn people in there. They may look different, they may sound different, but they're the same people. So, meanwhile, a couple of our social media and some of our entertainment type places are getting fined for being bad people. The Dutch authorities fined Netflix 4.75 million euros over personal data use. Dutch authorities fined video streaming giant Netflix 4.75 million euros, around 5 million American, Wednesday over the handling of subscribers' personal data. That was today. That was earlier today. Between 2018 and 2020, Netflix did not provide customers with enough information about what the company does with their personal data. And the information that Netflix did provide was unclear in some areas, said the Dutch Data Protection Authority in a statement. They go by the AP. The authorities noted that Netflix had since updated its privacy statement and improved its information to subscribers over the use of data. The company has appealed the fine, according to the Protection Authority. A company like that, with a turnover of billions and millions of customers worldwide, that's an odd billions and millions, had to explain properly to its customers how it handles their personal data, said AP Chairman Alid Wolfson. That must be crystal clear, especially if the customer asks about this, and that was not in order. The data protection watchdog said Netflix was unclear or provided insufficient information in several areas. It said Netflix was not clear over why it was collecting personal data, which data is shared with other parties, how long the data is kept, and how the data is kept secure when transmitted outside of Europe. Meanwhile, Ireland is fining Meta 251 million euros over Facebook hacks. What I was a victim of, it got my Instagram channel taken down. Just pictures of me in Chicago and weird things, and it said I broke the community things. Didn't tell me which ones. I appealed, and they said no dice. So Meta can go fuck itself, especially Instagram. An Irish regulator helping to police European Union data privacy said Tuesday it had fined Facebook owner Meta 251 million euros, that's 263 million smackaroonies, for a data protection failure that saw Facebook accounts hacked. The Data Protection Commission criticized Meta for a security flaw in its video upload function, which hackers were able to exploit to gain full access to other users' Facebook profiles. Over a 2-week period in 2018, unauthorized users were able to hack into around 29 million Facebook accounts globally. The personal data involved included email addresses, phone numbers, locations, and places of work. The failure to build in data protection requirements throughout the design and development cycle can expose individuals to very serious risks and harms, including a risk to fundamental rights and freedoms of individuals, says Graham Doyle, the regulator's head of communications. By allowing unauthorized exposure of profile information, the vulnerabilities behind this breach caused a grave risk of misuse of these types of data, he said. Meta Ireland and its U.S. parent company remedied the breach shortly after its discovery, the DPC said, and reported the issue to the regulator in September 2018. It is the latest fine in a series issued to the U.S. social media giant and its rivals as global regulators crack down on tech companies. In September, the DPC fined Meta 91 million euros for failing to put measures in place to protect user passwords data and for taking too long to alert the regulator of the issue. Yes, so there you go. But like I said, they're just fines. Yeah, exactly. Fuck Meta. Thanks, Miguel. They're just fines. You know, I mean, once they start doing Chinese rules of dealing with these people, you know, where it's like, oh, do you mean there's a chance I could get executed? You know, that the threat of death kind of makes you think about things a little differently. I'm not saying, I'm just saying, you know what I'm saying? Okay. Yeah. So Ohio is a very special place in our hearts, or in some of our hearts. But apparently their legislators are big time, cucks to Israel. And that, you know what that means? It's time to outlaw criticism of Israel.
The sharing of biased and
False news has become all too common on social media. More alarming, some media without checking facts first. Unfortunately, some members of the media use those platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think. And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
Okay. So this is from Information Liberation. Found this source online at through the tweeters. Ohio Senate passes bill aimed at outlawing criticism of Israel, criminalizing gospel. Interesting. So the GOP-controlled Ohio Senate has overwhelmingly passed a bill aimed at outlawing criticism of Israel, criminalizing preaching the gospel, and expanding hate crime, ethnic intimidation laws to fight anti-Semitism. They know the bill blatantly infringes on the First Amendment, but they simply don't care.
But tonight, a heated debate around a bill moving through the State House.
Subverting the First Amendment of the Constitution, I think, is very dangerous and a very slippery slope for us to go on.
We can criticize governments and policies. We should not attack folks for their identities.
According to its summary, Senate Bill 297 hopes to define anti-Semitism at a state level, making it easier to investigate claims of the behavior. In 2022, the Anti-Defamation League tracked 61 anti-Semitic incidents in the state of Ohio. In 2023, they say there were 237 incidents. So far this year, there have been 94. 10 TV's Rochelle Aline spoke to people who are concerned that the end result may infringe on their rights.
Bill's sponsor, Senator Terry Johnson, says the mission behind Senate Bill 297 is clear.
This new wave of hatred is only getting worse, and in the United States of America especially, it needs to be stopped.
By defining anti-Semitism at a state level, he hopes to curb anti-Semitic
like 5
incidents
people.
across our state.
6, 7
It's
people.
a mission many can get behind, but the language in the bill is leading to a difference of opinions. Under the proposed law, the state would adopt the definition of anti-Semitism that's on your screen. It's from the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance, or IHRA. The bill goes on to say that the state would use examples of anti-Semitism provided by that group in its definition as well. They include accusing Jewish people or Israel of inventing or exaggerating the Holocaust, accusing Jewish citizens of being more loyal to Israel than their own countries, and claiming that the existence of the state of Israel is racist. Critics of the bill worry the definition is too vague and the examples infringe on their ability to be critical of Israel.
I mean, in America, you can burn the American flag, but you cannot criticize a foreign country. I think this is a sad day in America.
But those who support the bill say they think it strikes a balance.
So you can criticize Israel, you can criticize Israel's policies. It's when we step into a space where we're saying, well, let's just get rid of Israel. It shouldn't exist. It feels really harmful to Jews because it is the only Jewish state in the world.
10 TV took this debate to 2 lawyers.
What is your reaction to this law as a First Amendment attorney?
As it is written, where the legislature should be using a scalpel, it's using a meat cleaver. It's much too imprecise to limit speech.
The Constitution protects your right to be offensive, to be racist, to be sexist, to be anti-Semitic. And not because we value those things, but because we value the First Amendment as a neutral principle.
In the end, both of them claim the language in the law will likely lead to trouble with enforcement if passed as is.
There are going to be 3 arguments that opponents would use to challenge this law. One is that it violates the First Amendment, free speech. 2 is it's so vague that a person of reasonable intelligence wouldn't know what is or is not prohibited. And 3, that it's overbroad, meaning that it prohibits lots of words that are clearly protected by the Constitution.
In Columbus, Rochelle Aline, 10 TV News.
Yeah. So exactly, it goes back to legislating speech, right? You know, and even to say that the state of Israel shouldn't exist, that's not to say that the people in Israel shouldn't exist. I mean, you're just saying like the actual, you know, religious state should not exist. That's your opinion. You shouldn't be punished for that. But, you know, don't say that in Ohio because, you know, Drew Carey will come after you, or the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I hope not. That would be terrible. This isn't Israel. I know, right? You do have the freedom of speech. You don't have the right for any government, not even a state government, to impede your speech, right? Now, you say something, you get your ass whooped by somebody. That ain't the government. That's just you talking shit, and then you getting your ass whooped. That's different. But when the government steps in and says, you can't say this, or you can't say that, that's when you do say, go fuck yourself. And that's exactly what I would tell them in Ohio, which is one reason I don't live in Ohio. If you do live in Ohio, that's, you know, I'm sure you're not bad people, but I'm just saying your government is pretty fucked up. So meanwhile, controversy hits CNN over staged report on Syrian prisoner rescue. You remember that? This guy, they found this guy in the Syrian prison and he had like really nice fingernails and stuff. It didn't look like a prisoner. CNN has acknowledged that a report filed by star journalist Clarissa Ward from Syria claiming to show her discovering a prisoner in a Damascus jail was bullshit. Well, it says false, but I'll say bullshit for added effect. The description of the video report stated that Clarissa Ward discovers a man in a cell in a Damascus jail who claimed to be an ordinary citizen imprisoned by the regime of President Bashar al-Assad. As Ward, her cameraman, and a militant from HTS entered the cell, a man lying under a blanket suddenly stood up and acted surprised to see them. He further claimed that he had been detained in the cell for 3 months, and he was not aware that the government of Bashar al-Assad had fallen. However, observers online quickly observed the report was not accurate and had been staged for dramatic effect by Ward and CNN. After CNN posted a link to the video reported on the video report on tweeters, which remains undeleted, a community note flagged the act as clearly staged. And those community notes are just like, yeah, they're kind of like, sometimes they're assholes, but then sometimes they're just like, look, this is bullshit. Come on. There is no chance a prisoner who was in the darkness can look with wide eyes at the sun. Additionally, his jacket is clean and he has a new haircut and clean nails, which is not a possible case for Syria's prisons, the note explained. Come on now, they have you can get a petty manny in a Syrian prison for cheap. So this was the community readers add context. His real name is Salama Mohammed Salama. Salama, known as Abu Hamza, is a first lieutenant in the Syrian Air Force intelligence, notorious for his activities in Homs. Residents identified him as frequently stationed at a checkpoint in the area's western entrance. Further, the prison had been opened and the prisoners were released days before as HTS fighters took control of Damascus on December 8th. CNN later retracted the report, claiming Ward and her team had been misled by the man. This is this guy's fault. Hey, you with the clean clothes, the haircut, the nice pedicure. You lied to us. But as a journalist, aren't you supposed to be able to sniff out bullshit? Come on. CNN explained the error by claiming that Syrians from Homs had identified the man as Salama Mohammed Salama, a lieutenant in the former Syrian government's Air Force intelligence director. Facial recognition software provided a match of more than 99% with the man CNN met in the Damascus prison cell. The photograph shows him sitting at a desk, apparently in military clothing. However, CNN refused to provide evidence that the photo exists, saying CNN is not publishing the photo to protect the source's anonymity. And a little CYA, too, on top of it. Syrian fact-checking organization Verify cites locals as saying that Salama managed different security checkpoints across Homs and was involved in theft, extortion, and coercing residents into becoming informants. According to these sources, he had been recently detained due to his involvement in extortion. So he was in the Huskow for extortion and not because of other things. After the fall of the government last week, many Syrians have gone to prisons and hospitals to search for loved ones detained or disappeared during the war, which began in 2011. In March of that year, al-Qaeda militants, including from HTS's predecessor group, the Nusra Front, launched an insurgency to topple the government with help from foreign intelligence agencies. Syrian intelligence detained many Syrians during the course of the war, some on suspicion of supporting the insurgency, and others for no apparent reason. Many have never been seen again. Clarissa Ward has a history of staging reports in Gaza and Syria. Remember this one? This is...
Clarissa is on the ground right now. Clarissa, tell us what's happening.
Stand by.
Wait a minute. Wait for it.
Hi, John. So forgive me. I have a slightly unelegant position, but we have just had a massive barrage of rockets coming in here not too far from us. So we have had to take shelter here.
There's going to be some point somebody's going to walk by.
5 minutes away. Gaza is in that direction. We can hear now a lot of jets in the sky. We could also hear the
it's like an SNL bit
intercepting a number of those rockets.
The guy in the back on the phone
whizzing overhead and making impact in that direction, not too far from here. We came to this location because this was ground zero for this entire operation of carnage. Hamas militants came on a pickup truck. This was the first place where they breached that border wall, and they basically drove down this strip, just spraying lead wherever they went. We saw, in fact, I was just grabbing it before that happened and we had to hit the deck, but heavy weaponry being used. It's saying we can get up now. Where are we moving to? Sorry, just 1 second, guys. Okay.
Heavy gunfire.
Alright, so now I
Nothing.
can
Look at
show
that.
you,
Nothing. Nothing going on
Syria.
around there.
This is where those militants first came.
The number of crickets.
Opening up fire on all these vehicles. There's a baby carriage down there, turned over on its side. You can see over there, Clayton, if you just show in the distance there, some kind of strikes. Looks like in Gaza as well.
Look how far away that shit is. They were on the ground right there. All right. That's enough of that bullshit. Ward has acknowledged that her past reporting in Syria has not been truthful. You think? That was probably the only true thing she said. In a June 2021 interview with CBS News, Ward, CNN's chief international correspondent, and she's the chief international correspondent, acknowledged the bias in her reporting. Yeah, I mean, you know, I will cop to the fact that I think I crossed the line in Syria. I became so emotionally involved and I was crushed by the U.S. response and the U.S. policy, Ward stated while advocating for regime change and brutal economic sanctions that have punished Syrian civilians. See, what do I always tell you? Fuckery is always afoot everywhere. It's just like sunshine or oxygen. It's everywhere except underwater. What happened? Meanwhile, bans and beyond is no social media for children the future. So we told you probably a few weeks ago about Australia banning social media for kids under 16. Now the rest of the world's like, that sounds delicious. I'll have some. Bans and beyond is no social media for children the future. Following Australia's landmark decision to ban social media for children under 16, several countries are contemplating similar restrictions, as the move has ignited widespread debates about the impact of social media on children's mental health and development. As we said, in November, Australia became the first country in the world to enforce such a ban, seen as the strictest measure implemented anywhere so far, which will take effect at the end of next year. The legislation will prohibit children from accessing platforms such as TikTok, Instagram, Snapchat, Facebook, Reddit, Tweeters, with platforms failing to comply set to face hefty fines of up to $32 million American. Australia's step has prompted other countries to consider similar measures, including several nations in Europe, of course, because Europe being Europe. Greece recently announced plans to regulate social media access for users under the age of 15. The country, which already bans mobile phones in schools, is working to introduce stricter parental oversight and age limits. The UK is also considering a ban on social media for under 16s, with Technology Secretary Peter Kyle recently declaring that the measure is on the table, pledging to safeguard young people from the adverse effects of social media. In October, Norway proposed raising the age limit for social media accounts from 13 to 15, aiming to protect children from the power of algorithms. The power of algorithms is yours! And to restrict the collection of minors' personal data by tech companies. France has introduced legislation requiring parental permission for children under 15 to access social media platforms. Italy mandates parental consent for users under 14, and Sweden is also reportedly exploring stricter age limits on social media. Another country mulling measures is Indonesia, where the government has said it may follow Australia's lead, citing growing concerns over the effects of social media on children's mental health as a driving force behind its deliberations. Well, you know, so basically they want to ban the truth from social media because it's the truth that's affecting these children's mental health. They see kids their own age dying in Gaza and around the world. So yeah, let's not stop the violence. Let's just ban the violence from being seen. Over in the U.S., starting in January, the state of Florida, Florida, will implement its own version of social media restrictions. Signed into law in March, they allow children age 14 and above to have accounts only with parental approval. Social media platforms will also be required to delete accounts belonging to younger children. When it comes to blanket bans on children's use of social media, experts remain divided over the idea. Welcoming Australia's decision, Rachel Sharman, a psychology lecturer and researcher at the University of Sunshine Coast in Queensland. Man, I used to party hard at Sunshine Coast. Woo, woo! Go ocean waves! It emphasized the ban's potential benefits. The social media ban is an important first step in ensuring children return to a healthy developmental environment for their physical, psychosocial, and emotional development, all of which are foundations to building good interpersonal relationships, self-regulation, and advanced cognitive skills such as critical thinking and theory of mind. Yeah, you're going to help them with their critical thinking skills by taking away shit. However, others believe that bans, are an oversimplified solution to a complex issue. Yes, what did he say? The guy said instead of having a scalpel, using a meat cleaver. Vanessa Denon, a professor at Florida State University, argued a ban alone merely delays the inevitable. Although older teens are more mature than younger teens and children, they will have their own learning curves when they finally are able to access social media. They will likely continue to face the negative challenges of social media just as many adults do. Denon suggested that one positive outcome of the Florida law could be increased family discussions about responsible social media use. Yeah, right. Keep dreaming. Open discussion about responsible social media use and the potential dangers of social media use is important. This open discussion may offer families a chance to discuss social media use more generally. Although the focus here is on children, many parents struggle with social media use, she noted. Neil Selwyn, a professor at Monash University, also expressed skepticism about bans, saying that while countries need to have conversations about regulating social media, a ban is not the best way to overcome these harms. Young people are living large parts of their lives with and through social media and are entering an adult world where social media is prevalent. Supporting young people, especially teenagers and young adults, to learn to be responsible, safe, and creative users of social media would seem an essential part of growing up today. I guess so. He argued that a ban will not work and only distracts from the much bigger and more difficult problems of regulating social media companies and investing in digital literacy provision. Alicia Rodriguez, a research fellow at the Australian Research Council Centre of Excellence for the Digital Child, also criticized the Australian law. I joined over 140 national and international experts in warning the government that banning people under 16 from social media won't make social media safe. She said, we need to move away from a deficit model when considering children's engagement with the digital world. Our focus must shift from protecting children from the digital environment and more to protecting them within the digital environment. The internet was not created with children in mind, but children have a right to be online. Opinions also vary widely on the extent of harm caused by social media. Denon emphasized the need to recognize its positive aspects along with its evident ills. It unites people with each other, with news, and with valuable information. It provides a creative outlet for some people and fosters community for others, she said. She also warned that bans could create new challenges, such as restricted access to beneficial content and social isolation for teens unable to connect with their peers. Sharman, however, pointed to compelling evidence of harm caused by excessive social media use. Overuse or misuse of social media can damage many areas of psychological well-being, most notably social skill development and interpersonal skills, leading to an uptick in what some researchers describe as virtual autism, she said. Cyberbullying, she added, has become increasingly prevalent, leading to significant increases in self-harm and suicide among teenagers. Selwyn emphasized the nuanced nature of the issue, stating, the best use of digital technology is a balancing act, not using too much technology, trying to engage in genuinely beneficial uses, and avoiding any form of technology that can be harmful. Sharman believes the Australian ban is one part of what needs to be a long-term cultural change, but acknowledged the challenges parents face in enforcing restrictions. It is quite impossible to expect parents to enact such restrictions among peer groups when everyone else has a smartphone and access to social media, she said. She pointed to the success of Australia's ban on mobile phones at schools, saying that schools are reporting better attention, more socializing, and less poor behavior and bullying. The social media ban, Sharman argued, offers an opportunity for families to reclaim childhood and to ensure that children's brains develop properly before exposure to potentially harmful influences. In contrast, Selwyn raised doubts about the practicalities of implementation. If I was being cynical, I would say that this is something that has been announced in a rush by a government looking to win votes from parents in next year's elections. That doesn't sound cynical. It sounds realistic. It's not clear technically how age verification would work. There are fears that all social media users will have to show proof of age ID or perhaps even have their faces scanned, both methods that are widely open to false verifications. On top of that, it's not clear how the ban will be enforced. Selwyn also noted that existing age restrictions, typically set at 13, are often ignored, with many underage users accessing platforms with their parents' knowledge. In reality, hard age limits like this are not effective, he concluded. Yeah, I mean, and really, it's up to the parents on this one, right? Look, I'm sorry, I'm not a parent, but if I was a parent, I think I'd try to be responsible for what my kids were looking at. You try to bring them up in a way that they become decent people. And if you're just you, it's like the kids in the 80s where the parents used TVs as babysitters, right? The latchkey kids, they go out and work. You're sitting at home. It's the same thing. We were watching TV and commercials and news and all that stuff. Well, mostly cartoons, but you get the gist. And when we started acting stupid, then our parents were like, hey, what's going on? And then they would, try to rectify the situation. So, yeah, you just take television and replace it with the internet. It's the same thing. If you would have tried to ban television from kids under 16 back in the 80s, that would have never happened. They couldn't do it. They tried with the V chip. They had this V chip on these televisions so that the kids couldn't access certain channels or whatever. But it was like, that shit didn't work. It worked for like 5 seconds till people figured out the V chip, till parents said, fuck it. And they just stopped doing it, So these decisions have to be up to the parents. You can't legislate morality like that. Like, because there's a lot of good stuff on the internet for kids, especially like information and stuff like it. Yeah, there's a shit ton of bad stuff, but that's what the parent is supposed to do. They're supposed to help this kid navigate the waters between the good shit and the bad shit. Just don't throw a phone or a tablet in your kid's hand because there's your babysitter. We're going out partying or whatever. See you later. Fuck that. That's bullshit. Yeah, exactly. It's like banning soda. You're not going to ban soda. Anything you ban, they're going to get around the ban. These kids are not stupid. They know how to get around these bans. And this is just a form of propaganda, is limiting access to information, because they don't want these kids knowing about the world right now. Granted, kids should be kids, right? You'd like for them to be, running around, playing, having a good time, not worrying about the world. But unfortunately, that's not the world we live in now. Everybody needs to worry about the world. And unfortunately, it means the kids too. That's their form of safety. Knowledge and information is safety for kids, because then they know. If they don't know, they're going to be easily taken advantage of. Finally, in our Propaganda Watch segment, our little funsies here, nobody likes the judicial system. It doesn't seem like, or at least people think it's a failure in this country. As trust in the judicial system falls to record low amid heightened political polarization. That's according to a Gallup poll. And there's 9 asshole fuckheads. Oh, that's the Supreme Court. Oh, yeah, same thing. The scales of justice appear unbalanced to many in the U.S. as trust in the nation's judicial system hits a record low, with nearly 2/3 of Americans in a time of heightened political partisanship saying they do not have confidence in the courts. You know why they don't have confidence in the courts? It's because these motherfuckers we keep electing on both sides of the aisle are the ones who are appointing these judges, and these fuckers are approving them. So, again, who you vote for determines who your judges are going to be. Trust in the system dropped to 35% this year, according to a Gallup Global survey released yesterday. The figure was far below similar measures in other wealthy nations, which were closer in line with the median, 55% trust in the judicial system. The U.S. saw a sharp drop in trust, 24 percentage points over the last 4 years. Similar drastic drops over a short time span have only been seen in countries like Myanmar when the country returned to military rule, Venezuela during economic and political turmoil, and Syria in the beginning of its civil war. Politics as it relates to Sleepy Joe Biden and dump truck Donald Trump almost certainly played a large role. Pollsters have recorded a steady and sharp decline in the Supreme Court's approval figures amid a growing perception of politicization among the justices. And while it's typical in all polling for members of the party not holding the White House to express dissatisfaction with the institutions and direction of the country, some key cases and rulings in recent years have upset even those who support the president. Gallup did not measure party affiliation of its respondents, but it did look at judicial confidence and how it compared to Americans' approval of the president. Those disapproving of President Joe Biden lost confidence in the judicial system from 46% in 2021 to just 29% this year, but notably, those approving of Biden also lost confidence in the judicial system from 62% between 2021 and 2023 down to 44% this year. Republicans could be expected to express dissatisfaction about the judiciary under Biden, and Trump himself has worked to sow doubt in the integrity of the legal system. At the time of November's election, he was facing 3 criminal indictments across 2 federal cases and a state case, and he was awaiting sentencing in a 4th case in which he was convicted on state charges. Since then, prosecutors have asked judges to postpone one of the cases and dismiss 2 others. But Gallup suggests that the erosion of judicial trust to record lows could stem from the addition of Democrats' disillusionment with developments like the several circuit court and Supreme Court decisions that went in Trump's favor, or with the Dobbs v. Jackson Women's Health Organization decision that overturned the landmark Roe v. Wade ruling, guaranteeing a federal right to abortion access. The Dobbs decision that overturned Roe v. Wade likely also shook the public's view of the stability of the legal system. You could probably say that about Citizens United, too. Says Joseph Moreno, a former federal prosecutor, the purpose of Roe was to settle the abortion issue, and for 50 years it did just that. Whether one agrees with the court's reasoning in Dobbs or not, it's hard to deny. It took an already highly controversial issue and thrust it back into the political arena. A previous Gallup poll from October found that Democrats' trust in the judicial branch fell from 50% to 25% between 2021 and 2022, which coincided with the Dobbs decision. Democrats' confidence in the Supreme Court specifically increased in 2023 briefly to 34% before falling again to 24% this year. By contrast, Republicans' trust in the Supreme Court increased from 61% in 2021 to 67% in 2022, then increased again to 71% this year. Yeah. Well, that'll last until there's a liberal majority on the court, and of course, then that's going to flip because it's all about partisan politics. And the Supreme Court shouldn't be like that. I think the Supreme Court should be elected just like the president, just like the senators, just like the House of Representatives. I don't think that a political party should be able to appoint that many judges like that. And all these judges should have elections. They shouldn't be appointed. And you're like, well, that's just a lot of elections. Well, fuck it. Let's have a lot of elections, goddammit. If it's up to the people, let's leave it up to the people and not put it in the hands of these fuckheads that don't give a shit about you or me and only care about their donors and the people that control them upon high. So we are Ronin. Bum, 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 bum. What's up, brother? Hey, listen, check out, Ronin has a new show on Sundays on the YouTubes, right? What's it called? I think it's called Cornbread and Roses. Yeah, North Alabama DSA. Be sure to check them out on YouTube and give them a like, share, and subscribe. They have a good he has a great show there. Hey, Ronan, if you want to drop the link to your channel, Cornbread and Roses. Thank you. Drop the link to your channel in the thing. All right. We get people to, like and subscribe to your channel because it's good stuff. You know what else is good stuff, folks? as we leave here today. Man, I didn't think the show was going to be this long today, but here we are. But I always say, okay, cool. So youtube.com at DSA North Alabama, DSA NORTHALABAMA. So yeah, make sure like, share, and subscribe. Good stuff there. Sundays you have your show, right? Is that right? Thank you, scientist. See, that's another half-baked reference. Just props that I want to talk to Samson. Fly me to the moon like that bitch Alice Cramden. That's such a great movie. Fish. Harlan Williams is probably my favorite in there. I'm not a fish. I'm a man. Finally today, I like stories about old ladies that do it different. You know what I'm saying? Sundays at 8 p.m. Is that Eastern, Central? We want to make sure people are, well, you know, if you subscribe to his channel, you'll know when he's coming on. Old ladies that tell you stories about how they live to be such a ripe age. Sometimes they'll say, well, you know, it was my diet. I always ate healthy foods. I exercised a lot. You know, I thought clean thoughts. No, not this old lady. 106-year-old woman stays young with positivity and Fireball whiskey. Oh, yeah, look at her. She's like, gimme. You mean you got some more whiskey for mommy? Come on, Granny's got it. Sorry. A woman who celebrated her 106th birthday at her retirement home in Ohio. Uh-oh, Ohio. We're going back to Ohio. Bam, 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 bam. I went back to Ohio, to my pretty countryside. Sorry, that's a Pretenders song. Woman who celebrated her 106th birthday at her retirement home in Ohio credited her long life to a positive attitude and a love for Fireball whiskey. She's positive that she loves Fireball whiskey. So that's like dual. Florence Hackman, who was nicknamed Fireball Flo. I'd love to be in the home and say, hey, Fireball Flo. You're like, you know it, kid. After her love of the liquor led to the manufacturer sending her complimentary bottles and merchandise for her 105th birthday. She turned 106 on Monday at the Traditions of Deerfield Senior Living Facility in Loveland. That used to be where I used to party. I just try to be nice to people and try to go one day at a time. That's all. Oh, yeah, and the liquor, Hackman said in a post. No, I added that last part. On the Traditions of Deerfield Facebook page. If you get that one day in, then you can go on to the next one. So that's what you've got to do. One day at a time, one day at a time, one day at a time. And Mrs. Romano, think what I've got to do today. You've got to keep moving as long as you can. The retirement home said Hackman still attends daily happy hours with her friends and closely follows her favorite sports team, the Cincinnati Bengals. So yeah, Fireball, fire in the hole. Love it, right? Drinky poo. There you go. That's what I'm talking about. Go start. Have a little sip on mommy. Yeah, so old ladies living to be 106 on whiskey. And you've heard stories like that. These old people living like 110, 20 years old. Now, how the fuck did you live so long? They talk about whiskey and cigars, right? And some of these old ladies like, yeah, probably sucking dick too. But it's mostly the whiskey and cigars. So maybe just a little bit of the fellatio. Yeah, so on that note, I'm done for today. Stick a fork in me. We might have ExtraBulla live this evening. I'm not sure. We'll see. I don't have a guest, so we'll be just talking shit, I guess. Talking about something important to you. I always like to have little bull sessions with my chat peeps. You know, come in. You guys want to talk about stuff, we can do that too. I always like to get your opinions on stuff. So if we do that, I'll let you know. It'll be YouTube, Rockfin, Rumble, Facebook, the usual suspects. But I'll let you know sometime this afternoon. I'm not feeling that great. My mustache keeps itching. I don't know if that's a thing, but we'll see. The usual suspects, I think Willie's got a show tonight. And, of course, Around the World with Dee and Friends later this evening. Kevin... I think Kevin's doing his usual Black Bear News around 2 p.m. Eastern All of them are on YouTube, but I think D's on YouTube and Facebook, Willie's on YouTube and Twitch, and I think Kevin Black Bear News is on YouTube, Rockfin, and Rumble, I believe. So anyway, be sure to check them out. Also, check out my pals here. You know, if you've been watching this little thing in the corner, check these guys out. Good people to like their channels, like their videos, share it out, that kind of thing. We're trying to have more of an informational community around here. You know, not just talking about like shit talking Cenk Uygur or some bullshit like that. We're trying to find, you know, actual information for you news you can use and other things like that. So been hooked up with some good peeps in this space who try to inform you and to entertain you, that sort of thing. Go talk to Samson. Bitch, you know what I want. Yes, check these people out, indeed, as the arrow points to the right. Thank you, Miguel. Thank you, Prop. And thanks everybody in the chat on all the channels here. Go start holding it down over there on Rumble. We have our lurkers there on Rockfin. Of course, all our peeps on Facebook and YouTube. Thank you so much. Appreciate you. If we don't see you tonight, we will be back Friday morning for more of this deliciousness. So I hope you have an awesome day. Take care of yourselves and each other. I love each and every one of you. And if you like this, if you're brand new, make sure to give us a like, share, and subscribe too. If also you want to donate to the channel, there's links down below. All the instant stuff like Venmo, PayPal, and stuff. But if you want to become a Patreon member, we have, you know, it's very simple. We just do $1 a month. You know, you don't have to go crazy or anything like that. Thank you, Miguel. You're great chat. You're great people. I love each and every one of y'all's. I appreciate your support. I appreciate you coming out watching these shows and getting your knowledge on. So pass it along, pay it forward, whatever you're going to do. And, you know, that makes the world go round. Information that people actually need and not some bullshit that divides us. So, yeah. So everybody have a great day. We'll see you on the flip side. Masta Blasta. Whoa!
This is City Alpha 5! Woo!
Soon.